Welcome to our special meeting. This is the Yuma County Board of Supervisors. We're also sitting as all special taxing districts. Uh, This is our special budget session again, being held May the 5th. It's 9 a.m. in the morning, and the first item in the agenda is Pledge of Allegiance. Would you, Supervisor McLeod, would you lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance?
Sure. Please join me. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chair.
We do have an item, it's called to the public. Called to the public is held for the public's benefit to allow individuals to address issues within the board's jurisdiction. Board members may not discuss items that are not specifically identified in the agenda. Therefore, pursuant to Arizona revised statutes, action taken as a result of public comment will be limited to directing staff to study the matter, responding to criticism, or scheduling the matter for further discussion and a decision at a future date. Now, anyone who's concerned about COVID-19 and does not want to be put into an open setting can submit an email, call to the public statement at publiccomment@yumacountyaz.gov. This email forms of public comment will be accepted until 8 a.m. the day of the meeting. All public comments will be read aloud during the Yuma County Board of Supervisors meeting beginning at 9 a.m. Is there anyone here in the public or outside in the public that would like to address the board? Not, I'll leave that item open just in case and move on to the actual agenda. The first item in the agenda is a briefing by the budget review team. You're going to give us sort of like a summary?
Yes, Mr. Chairman, members of the board, Susan Thorpe, County Administrator, and I'd like to introduce our budget review team. Gil Villegas, Tony Struck, Felicia Frausto, Lucia Gomez, Jenny Untersey, and Tiffany Anderson. It was a very difficult year this year, very challenging, and we didn't recommend very many items because of the changing circumstances and the uncertainties for the coming year and for the rest of this year. So with that, I would open it. Yesterday, we had about half of the departments came and gave their presentations to you. You gave us 4 items that you wanted to consider at the end of this session, and then you may have other items based on the comments from the departments and agencies about other items to consider. So with that, we'll turn it over to Lucio Gomez.
Good morning.
Yeah, this is a discussion agenda. These are items that we may take possible action for the year 2020-2021 budget. These are the recommended department budgets, and the first one would be, Lucia?
We have Sheriff's Office. Sheriff Wilma is available for any questions. Department pages begin on page 183 for admin and patrol, page 187 for the jail district. Staffing for admin and patrol begin page 184 to 185 for the jail district, 188 through 189.
Sheriff, morning.
Mr. Chair, members of the board, good morning. Leon Wilmot, Sheriff of Yuma County. Just a few things I want to cover. I know this year's been a little bit different for a number of folks because of the issues that we're facing in Yuma County, but it's not something that is foreign to us. Each and every one of us has experienced natural disasters in this county, from floods to H1N1 to hurricanes. And each and every one of those years, we still were able to sit down with the county administrator and go through our budgets to discuss any possible cuts. This year was a little bit different, unfortunately, and it hampered a lot of our abilities to be able to prepare for what was to come. And the reason I bring that up is because typically we have about a week or more to be able to sit down and go over each of the recommendations from the BRT. We weren't given that opportunity this year. So I want to make sure that we address that concern. Yesterday, there was a lot of discussion I noticed in regards to the jail district. And I just wanted to cover some of that in regards to the jail district because it looks like it was a large topic of discussion in regards to what funds are available and where that balance is at. Our detention facility handled 5,800 bookings last year. And we have an average daily population of 438. Currently, we have 8 DO openings. Of that, 4 are pending a start date, and 3 are currently in the background. Our attrition right now for the jail is the lowest it's ever been, 9.64. When you look at that in comparison to the national average is about 15 to 16%. So we're doing something good in our jail. This year, the BRT did approve the transport vehicles, which we appreciate. Our CIP projects that we submitted were not. They were put off till FY22, is my understanding, correct?
We'll go through the CIP.
That is in regards to the security camera upgrade, which is needed, as well as the smoke control upgrade. Security cameras was roughly 1.3 million. Smoke control upgrade for the facility is about 2.6. Now, when we discussed or listened to the impacts in regards to the jail district, one, obviously every year we have unanticipated medical costs that we have to address. Just to give you one example or two that were pretty significant hits on our budget. We had one juvenile that was charged as an adult that a doctor decided that they needed to fly that individual to Phoenix. That flight alone was a hit of $100,000 to our budget from one inmate. Another one was a female that was in our custody that had to have a stent put in. That was $80,000 just for two inmates within our jail. So each and every year we end up with unanticipated medical costs that hit our budget. But one of the biggest ones that hits our budget each and every year is when we worked with the board, and this is a legacy issue, and I know that the board is going to address that, and or the county is through a RFP. But during the recession, when the county got hit hard, we at the sheriff's office stepped up and started the RTC program. Back then, the county was only sending 2 to 3 a year to the state at roughly $600 back then during the recession. And that was $600 a day that the county was paying. But we needed to save money in the county, and we were able to step up as a jail district and start an RTC program within the facility. Well, that has grown exponentially over the years, and it has been a big hit on our operations because the county does not reimburse us for those costs. So just to give you an idea, in 2018, we had 20 individuals that were in the RTC program, and they were in there for more than 3,800 bed days. Now you take those bed days that the county would have had to pay the state, and that was roughly $2.9 million that we saved the county by doing the RTC program back in 2018. At our cost of roughly $132 a day, that was over $500,000 that we absorbed out of the jail district to help save the county money. Moving forward to 2019, we had 17 of those cases with 2,200 roughly bed days. So that was another savings of $1.7 million that we saved the county general fund from having to pay the state for those individuals to be over there and housed at the current rate of roughly $755 a day is what they're charging. But that hit our budget as well. So that was another $300,000 that came out of our budget just for the RTC. So you can see over the last 10 years since we started the RTC program, roughly 2010, 2011, when we first started it, there was very few in there, but those costs have gone up exponentially. It's my understanding that the county is going out to RFP to perform that service locally through a vendor, which will also help the jail district when it comes to that. So I just wanted to get that out there to the general public so they understand why there's such a significant impact in regards to the jail district. I felt that was pretty important. Do you have any questions in regards to that?
Any questions? No? Continue.
Okay. Before I change from the jail district over to admin and patrol. For admin and patrol, we requested funding for body cameras, and that was recommended, and we appreciate that. We also requested, and what we have done each and every year is try to address the disparity in the pay for our employees. Whether it's deputies 1 year, it's jail the next year, it's admin the next year. This year we focused on our dispatchers. These are our unsung heroes that sit in a dark room behind a computer and answer over 157,000 telephone calls last year alone. On top of that, they had another 27,000 911 calls, and these are 2 to 3 individuals that are sitting in that dispatch center. It's not a large contingent of individuals. This year we were able to address their disparity in their pay because we were frankly looking at a 27% issue in regards to attrition, and the national average is 17. So we're hoping to see with this pay raise for those few individuals, a change in that attrition for our dispatchers. For patrol, we handle a little over 112,000 calls for service. We have 3 open positions, is what I have. I understand your book shows 7, but what you have to understand is that with our agency of, well, the largest entity for the county with 391 positions, our open positions between the county and us is fluid. It changes every day between hirings, terminations, retirements. So right now, our records show we have roughly 3 open positions. One is in the final phase of the background. The next local academy is starting up in June, which has been a cost savings to the county. Fact is, the AWC has been working with us to further save the county money by being able to pay for the academy through the Arizona workforce. So it not only helps us as a county entity, but those other agencies that are sending folks down here, or AWC is working with them. So if you end up seeing Ratika from AWC, I'd appreciate you thanking her for all of her hard work and the academy director, because that saved us a lot of money. And that covers everything, the books, the housing, the meals, you name it. Right now, patrol has a 4.94 attrition rate. National average is 11%. So we're doing something good out there. One of the things that we also have as a legacy issue, this has been another unanticipated cost that we deal with, is we assist the county with performing medical examiner duties. That's not something that is the responsibility of the sheriff, but we stepped up to help the county perform that issue. When you're looking at the medical examiner, we requested overtime of $26,000, and that was denied. Now, what we have to look at is the fact that there are 4 individuals that are fully funded to perform ME responsibilities. It is not a 9-to-5 job. We average anywhere from, I'll give you an example. This year, January, they investigated 136 deaths. February, roughly 117. March and April, average around 126 deaths that each month. On top of the fact that we end up with an opioid crisis right now that we're dealing with. I think the total for last year was 48 deaths because of overdoses and suicides. So when that's denied, we have to take our personnel and backfill that position to be able to respond, because they respond at all hours of the day and night. Like I said, it's not a 9-to-5 job. So these folks are out there, and when they can't respond, then we have to backfill that with our normal budget to be able to perform that duty. So I think that's something that we need to look at as far as the board goes, is adequate funding to be able to perform that duty for you. Our vehicle request, as I understand it, and I don't know if there's been any changes, but the request was originally for 16, and the last word I got was down to 8. Is that correct? One of the things that the board needs to take into consideration in regards to the vehicles is these are first responder vehicles, and our policy is basically 5 years, 100,000 miles, because I don't feel that it's safe that an individual should be responding to a hot call, code 3, across the county with a vehicle that has over 100,000 miles on it. These vehicles go through a lot different rigorous work than a normal vehicle being driven to work by somebody Monday through Friday. So it's
With
something
the-
that we need to look
With,
at.
with the
If it-
possible exception of me, right?
I'm sorry?
With the possible exception of me. I drive crazy to get to work.
Mr. Chair, members of the board, I won't comment in regards to, any traffic infractions that you may or may not have done while going to work.
Proceed.
Another thing that we need to look at is if the vendor for the vehicles next year, typically right now, the way that the vehicles are manufactured, we're able to move that equipment over from the current fleet to the new fleet when it comes in. That's a savings for the county if we're able to reuse that same emergency equipment to go into those vehicles. So it's something for you to consider, and the fact that next year it will probably be double that amount that we have to address when it comes to patrol vehicles. So what's put off this year is going to end up coming back again next year, as it always does, but with those added 8 that are not being approved. We did ask for 4 deputy positions, 2 for patrol growth, 1 for tax collection. And the reason why we put in for that is because I did a beta test this year where we, for 6 months, concentrated on going out and collecting back taxes that were overdue. During that 6 months, we were able to recover over $100,000 in back taxes for the county. When the current situation arose, we stopped that because of that situation. We don't need to be putting our citizens in peril because of this situation and the fact that they're trying to feed their families and take care of their family members. So just as an example, that was one thing that we were looking at, and that's why we put in for that position. Another one was for the academy. We do enhance the academy here locally by training them with our local general instructors from the law enforcement agencies, because we want to tailor our law enforcement to working in our community for this geographic area. We don't want it tailored by some out-of-state or out-of-county instructors that are used to a metropolitan way of thinking. So we enhance with sending instructors to that academy to be able to perform that function. None of those positions were recommended. When we look at the fact that none of our positions have been approved for not only this year but in the past, what you need to look at is the fact that this county continues to grow. The calls for service continue to go up, and that's going to impact our response times. And there's very few supervisors sitting here today that have not had either themselves call us or the county administrator in regards to their constituents in their areas concerned about situations going on in their area. And we respond to that. Whether it's an intersection that's a 4-way stop that's backed up on traffic, to individuals out off of County 19th out in the desert, off-roading during the COVID situation, we get those calls. And we get a lot of those calls now in regards to COVID and what kind of enforcement we're going to be doing. It's been a serious impact on our agency handling all these different calls, because that takes them away from their normal proactive service. So that the public is aware and the board is aware, because I don't know as if the BRT has been looking back at the past few years when they look at the budgets and what they're going to approve and what they're not going to approve. But I think it's important that we get that information out there. Public safety is obviously a concern and should be a priority for any government entity. I don't think I'm wrong when I say that. When you look at Yuma County in 2017, 2018, this board approved 1 full-time emergency management planner, 1 full-time community planning coordinator, 1 full-time grants administrator, and 1 budget analyst, and 1 full-time management analyst that was transferred from development services. 2018 and 2019, this board approved 1 full-time grants specialist, 1 full-time safety program technician, 1 full-time economic development and intergovernmental director, who was transferred from a non-departmental to county administration. Now we're looking at 2019, 2020. 1 full-time computer-assisted mass appraisal, 1 full-time security officer position, 1 full-time voter service specialist, 1 full-time human resource assistant position, 1 full-time legal secretary, and I understand that that was in 2019, 2020. And we also had 1 position that was approved for the medical examiner's office. There was another security officer position to replace the current contract services, and 1 FTE for the equipment operator position. This year's budget, you're looking at 1 full-time development services director, deputy director, sorry, 1 full-time ITS, and 1 full-time human resources. So my concern is this: over the last 5 years, going into this year, the county's administration has grown by roughly, what, 30%, just looking at all those positions? And the sheriff's office has not grown at all as far as deputies. But we're the first ones that everybody calls. And right now with this COVID situation that's been going on for the last couple months, we are the only entity in the county that's working 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, answering each and every call for service. We are not letting people work from home. There's no way I can take deputies and have them make a call to take all their cases. I can't let the jail run on its own. And one of the concerns that we brought up when all this started was, what are we as a county going to do to address hazard pay for our deputies and detention officers? We still don't have an answer to that. So I've started working on a hazard pay program, because right now, each and every one of our employees place themselves and their families in a situation where they may be exposed. It's not that we don't deal with this on a normal routine basis, we do. We deal with every medical condition that you can imagine each and every day when we're out there on the street. But the county has not stepped up yet in regards to hazard pay to reimburse these folks for putting themselves out on the front line right in the middle of this. And to me, that's something that this county needs to look at doing. I will be submitting a proposal for hazard pay policy for this county, because I think it's something that's important for our employees, that they get adequately compensated for placing themselves at a risk each and every day, especially during these times. So one has to ask, is public safety going to be a priority this year for our Board of Supervisors? I would say that it does. It needs to happen. And this board needs to look at whether it's more important to grow their administration or grow entities that are out there responding to these calls for service for the public safety. With that, I will open it up for any questions that you may have.
Any questions?
Yeah, I do. When you're talking about a hazard pay, this COVID situation isn't going to go on forever. How do you determine when it's appropriate and when it's not? Because I understand what you're saying. I mean, you guys deal with TB, goodness knows what other diseases come through those doors. How do you differentiate one frame of time to another?
Mr. Chair, members of the board, Supervisor McLeod, that would basically be enacted when there's emergency declaration. Once that declaration is deemed no longer a situation, then that would stop.
Okay.
Is how the hazard pay would work.
That makes perfect sense. Thank you.
And you can base that off of whenever we dealt with the H1N1, the swine flu situation that we dealt with, it would be similar to that. Whenever the county would actually do an actual emergency declaration. Then if applicable, it would go into effect.
Yeah, okay. That makes perfect sense.
Any other questions? Okay, you didn't have well, we have a budget here, and I know that the items you discuss are probably items that you realize are not funded or haven't been recommended for funding. Most of them anyway, not all of them, but most of them. So I took notes. I mean, there's going to come a particular time where we get into the discussion about what else can we do. This is not just a difficult time for the sheriff's department. This is a difficult time for everybody. We've been trying to adapt as quickly as we can. We know this isn't going to last forever, but it's going to last for some time. So and we mentioned, at least I privately have mentioned the fact that we do have first responders that need attention no matter what. I mean, that's the problem with what's happening right now. That is happening to everybody, that is going to impact the revenues, but that the people that are mostly directly impacted, the first responders, are going to be caught in that situation where, we'll be looking at how do we adapt to this and make sure that your employees are taken care of. And I think that's going to be an issue that's going to be with us until we finish this process. But thanks for bringing it up.
Mr. Chair, members of the board, and I appreciate that, and I will tell you that we have heard this before, that same statement we have. I mean, even during the recession, it was a huge cut to the county, and we stepped up. The problem that I see is every time that we have stepped up to help the county, we have not been looked at as a priority when things got better. There was always something else that was an outside influence that precluded the sheriff's office from getting any further personnel. But yet, as I stated earlier, you still grew your administration by 30% during those other years when we were denied. So I won't take away from the fact that you have helped work with us to address the pay inequities that we've been fighting for many, many years. But what I'm saying is that what is the priority when you look at the outside in and you see the disparity in the growth for an agency that's a first responder that you call upon when your constituents want us out there. But when do I say no to you when I don't have a deputy that I can have sit on an intersection for a week to do a survey for an area that was approved 2 years ago for a traffic light that hasn't been done? So, I mean, when do I say no when it comes down to that? And then how do you answer to your constituents when I'm telling you, no, I don't have a deputy to be able to do that? Or I don't have a deputy that's able to go out to County 19th and Avenue E to address off-road issues when it's BLM and BOR property, and we're working with them on it. So, I mean, it's something that you need to look at when your constituents call you, because as long as I keep not getting personnel to handle the demand, then I'm going to have to look at where am I going to cut. It may be the ME's office. I'll have to give that back to you. I don't have the personnel to be able to backfill to perform that service. It's something you're going to have to address, or the county administrator will. So you understand my dilemma too. I mean, we hear that each and every year, but yet I can still see the county growing, but not in our area. So I got to ask, is public safety truly a priority, or is it not?
Oh, I think the answer is going to be yes. It's just a matter of making that answer fit the situation. And I think when you talk about a 30% increase, I mean, you mentioned that your department is the biggest department that we have. So 30% of 5 people is different than 30% of 390 or whatever the number is. I mean, obviously, we're going to have to take a look at that. As a matter of comparison, I think it makes sense that you would look at it that way. But, every department, I mean, we've reduced DDS from, I don't remember how many people that was there before. When the recession hit, we reduced that department. So we do adjust to the circumstances. But we listen to this every year. There will never be enough officers to put out in the street. But I get it. I get it. It's just, that's the best I can say. I get it, and we're going to try to adjust this situation to meet this demand, meet this challenge.
I appreciate that. I think you need to look at duplication of efforts in areas where you probably don't need a duplication of efforts. Maybe put them people together so they're talking to each other. So it's not a conflict, and it's not doubling our effort when one group is asking us the same information as the other, but because they don't work in the same office or communicate, we don't get that information.
I think you're going to get an answer that every elected official thinks they run their department the way they need to run their department, and it's not that simple. They're not all department heads we put in place. You're an elected official, so is the assessor, so is the treasurer, and they run their departments the best way, the recorder. They run their departments the best way they see fit. That call for communication, I think, is a good call. We're all part of county government. We're not, we're maybe running separate departments, but at the end of the day, this is a service organization, and whatever we can do to improve that service should be paramount to us when we're going through this process. I do appreciate your concerns, and I do appreciate your complaints. I mean, I understand that. That's where it's so difficult about putting together a budget, that essentially we have to weigh all these factors into something that is somewhat fair to everybody. And we haven't been fair to you. I do understand that.
Mr. Chairman, I had a question. On the hazard pay, aren't we tracking COVID expenses right now
Yes, we are.
to get reimbursed? Why can't, if there's been a disaster declared or emergency declared, why can't we roll hazard pay in for reimbursement?
Well, it currently doesn't exist now in Yuma County, so we'd have to create a hazard pay and identify when it would go into effect and for what individuals.
But that's something that
The
could
sheriff-
That's what the sheriff suggested.
be
creating
rolled
a
back
hazard
though to
pay.
where we get reimbursed for it, to make it, where it's not a hit on us because it's a reimbursable amount.
Well, if we get reambused for it, and that's not
the
a
other
certainty. Yeah.
But I'm just saying that why don't we look into that?
It would
to see
be,
if
it
we
would
can?
be
We can
an
apply,
eligible
but it doesn't mean we'll
expense.
get it.
I'll tell you what, we
I don't know.
will apply. We will apply. We will apply for hazard pay. And that's something we have already discussed. If not maybe with as much detail as this, but we will, we were talking about how we can get refunded for some of the costs that we're incurring right now. Obviously, hazard pay should be one of those issues that goes into that equation.
Thank you.
Chair.
Supervisor?
Sheriff, I had another question. So if I understood correctly, I'm not sure how we have a disparity between what HR says your openings are and what your staff says, but assuming the 3 patrol openings, you have one that's going to the academy that starts now? Is there, you only have the possibility of filling one of those 3 over the next, 5-6 months?
Mr. Chair,
Or does
members
it
of
work
the
different?
board, Supervisor McLeod, there's currently one that's already certified, and the others would be going to the academy. That's slated for June. So those 3 positions would be full. The reason why you're probably seeing a disparity in the positions is the fact that we hire, terminate, like I mentioned earlier, or have a retirement or a promotion that moves individuals in the agency. So that changes that dynamic, and then that information gets sent to county HR in regards to the employees being brought on. Obviously, the background portion of it takes about 3 months to get a background done.
How long will it, so you do have 3 in the pipeline for your open positions?
Mr. Chair, members of the board, Supervisor McLeod, yes, we do.
How long does that take? They start in June. When can you put them on the road?
Well, typically, I think it's 4 months before they graduate the
Okay.
academy. So
So
it would be
it's
down
about
the
a
road
6 to
further.
7 month process.
Correct. And then once they're graduated and certified, then it takes roughly a year for an individual to be a call taker out on the street by themselves.
Okay.
So they're gonna go, they'll get hired on 3 months, they'll go to the academy for another 4 months. So you're looking at 7 months right there, almost a year, before they're even actually out there working on their field training.
And when they're at academy, then are they receiving deputy pay
Yes.
at that point?
Yes, sir.
Okay. So that would make it almost impossible then for you to put somebody in the pipeline before you need them. Is that correct? If you're full.
Oh, if I was full,
Yeah.
it would take 3 months to get individuals through the background testing process for us to be able to look at. There's 2 academies that currently go here. One's full-time, one's a part-time.
Yeah.
And what I still utilize is for our detention officers that come on board that their ultimate goal is to be a deputy down the road. I still sponsor them through the Reserve Academy. So we are able to move them straight over into those positions because once they graduate, they're still a DO, but they're a certified peace officer now, and they're a reserve. So then I can hire them immediately to fill that position and then hire a detention officer.
Mhm.
And that's something that's helped with our attrition rate through the years, is rewarding those that step up and show promise. Some of them want to be deputies, but I can hire a DO at 18, but they can't be a deputy till they're 21. So I get a couple of years out of them in the jail, and then they can go through the academy, get certified, and then I can bring them on the street. Who better for a deputy than somebody that's worked in the jail for a couple of years and knows a lot of the players that are out there in our community? It helps.
But in some cases, you still have the field training that has to go on top of even a certified officer that you hire.
Mr. Chair, members of the board, Supervisor Simmons, that's correct. The FTO process is roughly 3 months for an individual to actually be a sole deputy out in a car as a call taker by themselves. And that depends on the FTO process, whether they need work in certain areas.
Supervisor Pancrase?
And Sheriff, is there any obligation for them to remain at the sheriff's department after they've been hired and they've gone through this training and we're paying them while they're going through this training? Isn't there some sort of
Contract or some sort of
contract
bindings?
that says that they have to stay with us for so long?
Mr. Chair, members of the board, Supervisor, we do have a contractual contract that we have them sign with me in regards to reimbursing the county should they not stay once they're hired for a certain amount of time. You can only do that for, I think it's 2 years. And I've had very few during that period of time that we have had to call out. And that has been upheld through the courts, and it was something that we drafted that followed basically Navajo County's contract, and it has been upheld in court.
It's really difficult. You are in an environment full of people who can hire your deputies once they're well trained, especially the best ones. They have choices. They have federal choices, they have state choices that pay more and have more benefits. It's difficult to keep trained officers, good trained officers in the force. So, the fact that you have such a low attrition rate, it's to me an indication that either they feel good about what they're doing, or they're being treated right, or you're doing something right if you're keeping that below the national average in this particular area. I mean, it's different as you go further into the country, but at the border locations, border counties have extreme competition from Homeland Security, from Border Patrol, from all kinds of agencies that are trying to take your officers.
Well, the big
So,
city and the state
yeah.
are a big issue because they'll offer more plus hiring incentives
Yeah.
to go to Phoenix or even DPS.
If you have a bilingual officer, I mean, everybody's going to try to kick him for bills. Yeah. Well, let's not mention that. Move on. Okay, any other questions? Thank you, Sheriff. Thank you for the presentation. We'll take a look at your budget at the end of this process and see if we can do something about the issues that you mentioned.
Appreciate it. Thank you.
Welcome.
Next, we have the recorder's
Thank you for
office.
putting in the easy one in the front.
Robin Paquette, County Recorder, is available for any questions. Department pages begin on page 175, staffing page 176.
Good morning, Chairman Reyes, members of the board. Robin Stallworth Poquette, Yuma County Recorder. The Recorder's Office and Election Services Office made 2 requests of the Budget Review Team, and I'm not requesting any further review from what was recommended. I am appreciative of the recommended budget, the way it's been presented to me. I just wanted to note that myself and the elections director will be looking this year at some available grant funding from the Secretary of State's office and the Help America Vote Act to subsidize some costs that the county has taken on in regard to elections, election security, and the changing environment that we are experiencing with voters. I do want to note, in the world of anything having to do with elections, it has been very difficult to provide a predictive model to the county and the BRT in regard to expenses. I think that we have significant interruption to what we would normally predict as expenditures when we deal with unsolicited responsive mailings to prospective voters and the like. That is a heavy strain on our office for postage and additional resources for staff that should be paying attention in their daily work to accomplishing statutory responsibilities. So aside from that frustration that we're having to juggle, I think that is where we see a significant strain on our budget in other areas where I would have expected to realize a cost savings the last few years. But I think that we have not because of those types of interruptions or items that we're just not able to predict are going to strain the department. Other than that, I really don't have anything else. I am appreciative of the BRT, and I would like to note I'm extremely appreciative of the HR department and Felicia's work in adjusting any concerns we have in regard to staffing and ensuring that we have a balanced workload amongst staff, and especially in the 3 different areas that we are working. So with that, I can answer any questions you might have or concerns.
The situation, the COVID-19 situation, it's putting us in a bind here to hold elections where, you know, people can go vote. I mean, I don't know how that's going to work out in August, which is the next election that I think we have, the next primary election. But have you thought of any different, you know, I mean, I know we have early voting. Is there even a consideration to expand that?
We are extremely concerned about the impact to our offices with COVID and the impact to the elections, the administration of the election in August mostly. I think we're also very concerned about November, not knowing what the future holds as to that particular problem. I have sent mailers, we're actually mailing them out this week, that are going to all voters within the county. If they are not currently a permanent early voter, those will explain that. The notices will explain that to any additional, to all of the additional voters that are not currently on the list so that they can make that choice. In addition, we are taking significant steps to plan for those physical locations. The state has not entertained the conversation about a complete vote by mail election, but regardless, even if we had a completely vote by mail election, we still would be required by law to set up physical locations. So I think that's what we're trying to tackle now, is make sure that we're taking care of, regardless if we're able to service more voters through the mail, or we will expect a higher turnout in the physical locations. We are extremely concerned about the availability of supplies. We're working with the Secretary of State's office to try to identify an ability to procure supplies, cleaning supplies, antibacterial wipes, masks. They have committed to assisting all the counties with that, but I have to say we have not had any luck finding some supplies to try to get it ready for August. I'm also very concerned about the physical location setting up for election. We did realize a few security concerns at the vote centers in the March election. Obviously, people were wearing masks coming in to vote, but what was observed was there were many people that were wearing masks and sunglasses and hats that completely
Cover their identity.
prevented any recognition of the individual, their ID, anything like that. And I think for some poll workers created a very unnerving feeling, more along the lines of a security concern with that particular vote center. I feel very strongly that in many of those instances, someone was probably just kind of testing the water, or, you know, seeing how we would handle those situations. But I felt it was unfortunate for the poll workers. I think they're nervous, and we are very nervous about recruiting adequate poll workers for August.
But that's what I was more or less going towards. I mean, it's you may want to set up some physical locations, but you may find it difficult to find people to man them unless there's some sort of a protocol that establishes some safety for those that work the polls and those that attend the polls. It's going to be a difficult walk for you to go through this. So whatever we can do in terms of PPE, personal protection equipment or something, that, you know, we need to get ready, because I think that well, it's my personal feeling that we're not going to get through this that quickly or that fast, and that there's going to be some lingering after effects that are going to remain, and some concerns that people are going to have about physical contact. I mean, I think this physical distancing situation is going to be with us for a while, at least in terms of a safety protocol. Maybe, some people don't think they're necessary. That's their right. But the problem is that when we hire people to work for us, we've got to make sure they work in a safe environment and that they feel secure about their well-being. And that's going to be the challenge, I think.
Chairman Ray, as members of the board, we definitely are concerned about that, mostly from the number of poll workers that are within a vulnerable population. Unfortunately, the majority of our poll workers are of a vulnerable population, and they are very eager to work the election. So it's kind of difficult to navigate that. But we would ask if the board has any acquaintances or constituents that have been expressed an interest to be a poll worker, please send them our way. We would very much appreciate recruiting some additional poll workers, and we have had some withdraw since the PPE that are not going to be able to move on to August. So thank you.
All right. Are you okay with the rest of the budget, or what's your budget as it is? It's just there's some tinkering that you're going to have to do in regards to the conduct of elections, and you're going to try to get some grants to help you with that. Is that basically
Members of the board, yes, that's correct.
Any questions from the recorder? Thank you very much, and you're doing an excellent job.
Thank you. Have a good rest of the day.
Should have said that to the sheriff, but I think he left us in shock.
That was really unfair to come after.
I know. So, he left already, so the officer there is recording everything. I know, but it's okay.
Next, we have the County Treasurer's Office. Angela Moreno, County Treasurer, is available for any questions. Department pages begin to page 201, staffing page 202.
Good morning.
Are you okay with your budget?
I am okay with my budget.
Well, then we should
Do
take
you
it away.
feel secure about the investment? Look, the question is going to be, it's too early to tell, I know, because collections aren't, but do you have any sense at all what this situation is going to do to our collections?
So, in analyzing everything, as of this morning, we have approximately 95% collections for 2019 taxes. We are still processing the mail that's flowing in, about a week that'll take. So we're definitely going to be good for 2019. Now, November, I project, and this is a true projection, because of the phone calls that we are receiving with the hardships from 2019, this past last due date, it was apparent that there were several small business owners who have to pay their business taxes. Those were the ones that seemed to need help. Mortgage companies obviously paid. So when we look at our November first half taxes due for 2020, I anticipate less coming in, but the majority definitely will be flowing in due to mortgage companies, servicing companies. They have those contracts to make sure they pay, and they pay even when the homeowners doesn't pay. So I think we're safe there. I would project 10% if that.
If it continues.
Yeah, for 2020. That's
No,
that's my very conservative guesstimation.
Well, the word, Hill is being conservative about it. I think he increased the
Yeah, Gil and I have
unpaid
been working together.
percentage to what, 4.7 or 4 point something, or almost 5. So you're pretty much within that
3.5.
range, pretty close. How much?
Germany was 3.5.
3.5. Go to 4.5. No,
Yeah.
No.
it's going to be, there's going to be an impact, and the only reason we're not feeling it is because of the, like you said, most people who own a house have an escrow account where the money's collected anyway. But coming in, the businesses are a different story, and that's really where we feel it's going to hurt.
So we've been working with every single phone call, every single email on having them pay in payments, even prepayments, so that when the bill comes out, they're not as far behind as they think they could be. So we are working diligently with all of all those people who, and they can pay online, they can pay with an e-check for $1. I mean, we really have covered the basis.
You have all kinds of remote
We have,
payment methods.
yes, absolutely. We will take all kinds of ways creatively to. It's been a challenge to have the doors closed, but it's been great. We've received all our collections. Anybody who does come to the door, we work with them over the phone, and they
Make
simply write what they need to on their envelope and drop it in the drop boxes, and that's been great. So it's been challenging, but we're glad we're all still safe.
Right.
Mr.
Supervisor Pancras.
Mr. Chair and Angela, so small businesses can pay you once a month?
In increments?
Absolutely. Absolutely. They can, and there is no contract signing. They can send me whatever they can, whenever they can. The law specifically states at least 10% of their bill, which most of the time that they do that. So I actually already have a lot of the fixed income homeowners pay once a month when they get their Social Security check. So that they love that. It's already, that's how it is. So I've been telling that to all business owners, and it's happened. A lot of the business owners still do that with their personal property taxes or their commercial business land. Mm-hmm.
All right,
Mr.
so
Chair?
sure.
Yeah,
Supervisor McLeod.
I was going to bring that up, Angela, because I'm aware that you did that, and I want to commend you for being forward-thinking, innovative, and that obviously helps with collections, and it helps with our constituents. So just wanted to point that out so the public knows a lot of this stuff you put in place, and so I appreciate that.
Thank you very much.
A lot of times it's easier to pay a little bit
For sure.
every month than it is to
Absolutely.
pay a huge amount at one
Mm-hmm.
time.
Well, how you budget, you're fine with your budget, right?
Yes.
Okay, any
Sure,
more
that's
questions? No? Thank you, Angela.
Thank you very much. Thanks.
Next, we have the County Assessor's Office. Joe Worley,
Yes, sir.
County Assessor's available for any questions. Department pages begin page 73, staffing page 74.
Is this your last time, Joe?
Oh, we can beat you up now, Joe.
Good morning.
The sheriff left us a little,
Yes. Good morning, Mr. Chairman, members of the board. Joe Worley, Yuma County Assessor, for the last time.
So you say, but
So
It's too late. That horse left the barn.
the horse left the barn. Yes,
are you okay with your budget?
Yes,
Your last
sir, I
budget?
am. Thank you very much.
So you
Thank
can,
the budget
you can
team.
inherit that to somebody else and feel okay about it.
I especially want to thank the budget team in working with us this year, and the Human Resources Department. We were able to do a lot of modifications that were necessary for some salary adjustments that were needed in the office to get things on an even keel. So we are very happy with what's being recommended. And if you have any questions, I'd be happy to answer.
Oh, thank you. Do you have any questions? No. This was an easy one. Your last one was the best one.
It's because I'm leaving, right? He's not picking on me because I'm leaving.
Well, I want.
Well, we could have taken the other tack, which is to beat you up as much as we can since you're leaving, but,
Mr.
no.
Chair, I would like to point out, Supervisor McLeod yesterday made a good point about the spike in the new construction numbers, and that was in fact a spike that came from last year. And that the economy, even though we're in this problematic time right now, our construction industry for those periods, we're still in a growth cycle. So there was no big downturn in the economy. We're not really looking at one for this year either. It doesn't seem like the virus has really affected the real estate market that much.
That deeply.
So we do look for some growth going into this next year and the year after that. We're preparing the 2022 roll right now. The only thing we're doing for 2021 right now is new construction. So we are working on the 22 roll as far as market values and analyzing that and preparing for that notice that will come out in January of 21.
Well, we just want to let you know, we're considering a reduction of the tax rate as a way to help out through this process. Now, to me, that's always been a little bit difficult because everything seems to come in much later. And this is a kind of crisis where, you want something quickly. And I'm just trying to make sure that people understand that even if we go ahead and reduce the tax rate, a minimal reduction or a reduction, to try to offset the appraisal increases, they're still not gonna feel that right away. It's going to take some time.
It takes time for that to happen, yes. It's not an immediate process, no.
All right. Well, before we get too far in the weeds, thank you very much and Godspeed.
Thank you.
I just want to say thank you for all your service, Joe.
Yes.
Yes, thank you very much. I
Don't have to deal with this anymore.
really enjoyed it. 44 years.
Dang. Well, thank you.
Well, I've enjoyed working with you, Joe. It's been a great relationship.
Thank you very much.
All right.
Bye-bye.
Next we have,
Checks in the mail.
next we have the Constable's Office, Precinct Number 1. John Nozar, Constable Number 1, is available for any questions. Department pages begin page 89, staffing page 90.
Morning, Mr. Chairman, and members of the board. My name is John Nozar, Constable Precinct 1. I have nothing.
The department grew by 30%, so we know it's, no, I'm just kidding.
We're very satisfied. We'd like to commend the BRT for helping us out, and like they do year after year. And I'm just here to entertain any questions if there are any. Other than that, I'm fine.
No, I think we're okay. If you're okay, we're okay. Thanks.
We're good. Thank you very much.
Next we have Constable Number 2. Rafael Torres is available for any questions. Department pages begin page 89, staffing page 90.
Good morning, Mr. Chair. Supervisor, good morning. First of all, I'd like to thank Susan and the PRT team for their help and guidance through the budget, especially Lucia. Every time we have a question, concern related to the budget, she's over there to help out. I have no concern with my budget. I like the way it is. If you have any questions for me, I'm here I'm available for that.
Yeah, this is one of those situations where you quit while you're ahead, huh?
Yes.
All right. Do you have any questions? No? Well, thank you, Rafael. Thank you for showing up. Great.
Something, just, Mr.
Uh-oh,
Chairman.
uh-oh.
No, not with you, not with
The
you.
gun. You gotta
Just
take the
something I
gun
wanted
out.
to throw out there for county. I noticed this year there's a Constable 3 that's put in for the running on the board
Oh, for elections, you mean?
for elections. He's the only one there, so, but I don't know if we kind of looked at that too.
So we haven't.
They won't have them. They don't get paid.
Yeah,
They
that's
don't
what
have
I mean.
enough.
It's just throwing that out there, that there is a third one in there.
There's
or
not
going
enough
to be.
activity, right, to generate pay?
I thought he was just standing up to say, it's not the budget. I mean, it's not in the agenda, so don't talk about it. Yeah, but we're used to someone standing up and going, folding their hands like this and looking at you, glaring at you, saying, you know, you're off the subject there.
I just mainly wanted to make sure everybody was aware of that.
It was in the constable's budget that the gentleman here, Supervisor Simmons, has just mentioned the fact that there's somebody running for that position. Although it's a non-paid position and it may not create any expenses so far,
But it
it's
does.
something to think about.
Mr. Chairman, I think there's a salary. I think it's a $12 salary for the constable too,
gonna
and
break the
be
budget.
reminded that we need to pick up benefits and EREs for them as well.
Oh, well, it's a good reminder then. Good call.
Just wanted to throw it out there.
It's a good reason to
It's probably in your district too.
Yeah.
Well, we'll take it out of your salary. It's okay. Okay, the next one is the school superintendent, Tom Tyree, which is very busy man lately with everybody out of school trying to navigate this COVID-19 world as of today in the education field.
Good morning, Chairman Reyes and members of the Board of Supervisors. First of all, let me just remind you that this is an important week because this is Teacher Appreciation Week in the state of Arizona, and I know you join me in expressing your appreciation to all the teachers in Yuma
More than
County.
ever.
Yeah, so they're out there still working. They may be doing it remotely, but you know,
Or
part
in
of
a
the
car,
government-
driving somewhere.
Yeah, so there's still a lot of learning and education going on, and of course as you sort of alluded to, we're sort of wondering what the new world's going to be as it relates to education. There are a lot of discussions and meetings going right now regarding maybe changes in calendar year and things like that. So stay tuned. With respect to our budget, our office has no new requests.
We are status quo again as we have been. So I'm here to answer any questions you might have.
So we're still in, I mean, I know you mentioned that the calendar was going to maybe change a little bit for next year, but you have scheduled classes for.
Yeah,
for
you know,
next
we're still
school
waiting for guidance on that. There are, as I said a minute ago, there are a number of different kinds of meetings that have been going on. I've been staying in touch with people in Phoenix. There are some blue ribbon types of panels or groups of people who've been brought together to take a look at, you know, where we are. And anybody that I guess presumes that somehow the things are going to be exactly the way they've been before is, I just kind of doubt that right now. First question is, you know, when we might start. You know, everybody has a calendar that they're projected to start on a certain date. Typically, that's, you know, towards the end of July. You know, once again, we're waiting to hear for guidance on that. Once we get that, and at this point in time, I have no information that says that you know, anything has been changed with respect to our calendars. But you know, the question is going to be, you know, is that a possibility? The other part of that is how are we going to schedule the school day? I think we're still concerned about social distancing. Are there some ways that we can mitigate the size of classrooms themselves? You know, will we continue to use maybe at sub-levels virtual learning, you know, or distance online learning and those types of things to help mitigate that as well? Well, that's all up in the air. And I have a county superintendent's meeting that I will be attending virtually next Monday, and I'm curious to see, you know, to hear what's going on as far as the rest of the state is concerned. Local education leaders are meeting also. We're taking a look at that. So it's a real all hands on deck type of situation. And obviously, one of the things we want to do is just, you know, prepare for anything that might be different or new, and that preparation is important not only for our, you know, our schools, our teachers, our administration, but obviously also for our parents and our community. So I can assure you that we're taking a look at it, and once again, just as soon as we think we sort of have it figured out, we'll let people know.
All right, thank you.
Okay, thank you very much.
All right.
Next, we have County Attorney's Office. John Smith, County Attorney, is available for any questions. Department pages begin page 77, staffing page 78.
So that's why you were here this morning. I thought you were here just to watch us not step out, but.
It's been pretty busy the last 6 weeks, 8 weeks, I think we would agree, right?
Yeah.
I'll tell you, in light of Teacher Appreciation Week and having a 9-year-old at home and my wife and I both working, setting up a desk anywhere I can do it at any time, 24/7. I think one thing that good will come out of this COVID-19 is how greatly underappreciated our educators are and how we need to compensate them better. I agree. And I'll leave that open for questions with regards to my budget without going.
I was going to say, you
are better than Bill.
You're okay with your budget?
I appreciate all the hard work, and I know it was last minute ttrying to put this together, but it's going to be fun.
All right, okay.
One of the things we're looking forward to for next year is upgrading our case management system, and we have been in contact with ACJC, who has offered us about a $214,000 grant to upgrade for next year. So we'll maybe coming that forward, but it should cover everything 100% without little impact. It'll help us start doing electronic filing from the courts, start doing that as well, and working from home better.
Well, there's this definitely going to change the way a lot of departments operate. I mean, not just attorneys, the courts.
Everything.
I mean, yeah, everything will change. School, you know, it's tough to find a doctor. It's tough to find a doctor that wants to see you in person.
Well, they're not eating us yet, so.
All right. Okay. Well, let's just drop it right there.
Okay.
Let's get off the subject. Thank you very much, John.
Next, we have Superior Court. Presiding Judge Haas is available for any questions. Department pages begin page 193, staffing page 194 through 196.
Good morning, Chairman Reyes, members of the board. It's a pleasure to be here. We are happy with the recommendations of the BRT. Honestly, I was a little surprised at the recommendation. I was afraid I was going to have to come in here and whine a little bit.
Well, we thought you sent the sheriff to soften us up.
But no, I really appreciate the relationship we have with the BRT, with the county administrator. We try to work together. I'm proud of our people, the way we've worked through this virus. Right now, we're still working a little bit of a split schedule. Some are working from home. We have judges working 2 or 3 days a week with their staff and people working from home, but we're still being productive. On the days that my staff is at home, I'm constantly getting emails and phone calls from my judicial assistant, and we're actually getting things done. So I look forward to getting back. I keep seeing my criminal calendar back up more and more. I don't know when we're going to get back to jury trials, but I have a greater appreciation for my staff having gone through this. And if you have any questions, I'm prepared to answer any questions.
And on this particular situation, you're trying to even load them up even more with the Veterans Court, right?
You know, we, probation and the courts, we are all dedicated to helping the community. I think this is a way to help a segment of the community more effectively than we've done in the past. You know, when we've had veterans on probation in the past, we've worked with them and we've tried. I just think this will be a better tool in our toolbox to help veterans.
Yeah, and we look forward to seeing that. We look forward to seeing that happen.
Yeah.
Anything else? Thank you, Judge. We appreciate you coming.
Next, we have Clerk of Superior Court. Lynn Falls, Clerk of the Superior Court, is available for questions. Department pages begin page 85, staffing page 86.
Good morning, Chairman Reyes and members of the board. Lynn Falls, Clerk of Superior Court. We only had one request this year, and it was to correct a disparity in a pay range, a market adjustment for our courtroom clerks. And I have to really commend the BRT for working with us, and Human Resources, Felicia, for walking us through that process. It's been a long time coming, and we're super happy with the recommendation that be funded. Other than that, I'm super happy, and that's all I have.
We want you to stay super happy.
I'm super happy. So if you have any questions for me, I'm happy to answer them.
Well, thank you. Maybe not a question, maybe a clarification. We're looking at all those adjustments as we, get to the end of this process. We'll be looking at whether those adjustments are going to be immediate or they're going to take some time because of the current situation we're going through. But we'll make that decision at the end. They've been recommended, though.
I appreciate that. We have a lot of turnover in our courtroom clerk section, and as I'm sure you're aware, the courts are just busier and busier. The girls are, inundated with work, and it's a high stress, high energy position. They get burnt out, and we are farmed from real often because they have to know so much. So we were losing them to federal court, losing them to attorneys, losing them to Superior Court. JAs or judges are stealing my girls upstairs, but I take that as a compliment because I have such great employees, and I always encourage them to do better. But it makes it hard on the ones that stay. Just the extra work to cover for our openings, and training takes about 6 months, so it can be a challenge. But again, I'm very happy with your recommendation, and that was
all right,
Mr. Chairman.
Sure. Supervisor McClellan.
Lynn, thanks for being here. We spoke a while back about an issue there and does the budget provide for a fix for that?
We have done had some discussions, and we were kind of starting to move forward with the issue. We have an issue in the courts, in my office in particular, with just the ability of people to get through to a real person. And I know that that's problematic, and it has been since I came on as the clerk of the court. There's not an easy fix for it just because of the nature of our jobs, the number of people I have, and how they're multitasking constantly. That's not an excuse. I think our county admin has agreed to help us and make that a project and a priority for the coming year to get that resolved and hopefully get some things in place that make the system better. I know when we went to when Kevin Tennell put together the piece on the county website where people could search and ask a question, and there was someone here at admin answering. We did some fixing with that because it actually gave them an avenue to say, okay, well, you can email this person, you can email this person, because they have a list, and that has helped somewhat. But the problem isn't solved. I recognize it, and I know it's a priority. You and I spoke about it, and it's definitely on the radar. When the this whole COVID issue started, it kind of didn't put it on a back burner, but we became so inundated with trying to do our jobs digitally now, and it's been quite a challenge for the clerk's office to have staff in place, even while we can't really work from home. So trying to manage it and put people on a rotating schedule so I don't have so many folks in the office has been challenging. So I'm not ignoring it. It kind of took a little back burner while we're getting through this crisis, but it'll definitely be a priority once we're back to normal.
And I think part of it was an IT issue as well, right?
It is. It's a multi-pronged thing. It's not just personnel. It's not just, I mean, even if I had a one-time receptionist that only answered a switchboard, you would still have calls unanswered because we get that many calls.
Mm-hmm.
So it's a process.
Yeah.
And there are several possible solutions we're looking into, but we have not really gotten the ball rolling on it at this point, but it is a priority once we're kind of back to a more normal and a full scheduled staff, everybody's in the office.
Yeah. Okay.
Okay.
Yep.
I appreciate that. Thank you. Anybody else?
Oh, thank you. I think we're fine. Thank you. If you're fine, we're
You guys
fine.
have a good day.
Next, we have adult probation. Mike Bird, interim chief adult probation officers, available for any questions. Department pages begin page 67, staffing page 69 through 70.
Before you begin, let me tell you, we've had a lot of people with guns this morning. I don't know, I'm starting to get a little intimidated. Go ahead.
Not
Yeah,
intimidation
ball-headed
factor
with
by any
guns,
means.
that's double the threat.
Chairman Reyes, members of the board, thank you so much for the opportunity this morning. Very pleased with the budget process. This was my first effort going through this process solo as the interim chief. I couldn't be more happy with the budget review team, how much they helped the Superior Court, all of the financial assistance that we had getting through this. It was very much a learning experience for me that I appreciated. I thank all of you for the fiscal responsibility that you show to put us in a position some other counties are not. So I'm very happy with the recommendations, and I'm here for any questions that you may have.
Sure, Supervisor McLeod?
Mike, thanks for being here. I believe that we got you additional budget for the drug testing.
Correct.
For drug court, so you'll be able to step that up.
Yes, that's huge. One of the things that this county is known for is our drug court program that has been in operation since 1998. It's a fantastic problem-solving court that several other courts in the county have turned to for some guidance and assistance. We've always struggled with substance abuse testing the way we should test, just because of the cost that's involved with that. We talked about it. This year we've had some conversations about that, and we were able to put some of that money in some set-asides to draw from so that we can do a better job of offering folks in this program that much better of an opportunity to change their life and not come back into the criminal justice system.
I think it's a big step, and I want to thank the county administrator and the budget team for putting that together, particularly in light of the challenges, but I do greatly appreciate that.
And quite honestly, the cost is significant, but the upfront costs are cheaper than the back-end costs. And to have these folks sitting over there in the sheriff's jail or to have them go into the prison in Arizona is going to cost us much, much more. So although it is a fiscal need that we have on the front end, the back end will show the difference.
Mr. Chair.
Supervisor
I
Blanford?
attend the drug court graduations whenever I can, and drug court changes people's lives. And
Yes.
it allows so many people to become productive citizens in our community. And it's worth every penny that we spend for those folks to be able to become parents again and to be able to become tax-paying citizens again and to keep them out of prison.
Absolutely. Oh, the specialty court, the specialty court dynamic that treats our drug court offenders, that treats our mental health situation, treats our veterans, all of those just have a huge impact on the members of our community for a better, positive outlet.
Yeah, and I think your department is a classic example of that. It becomes, it's adult probation, but, you know, it's another method or just one of the main methods to be able to have people, you know, pay the due to society, but at the same time, be a member, a productive member of society. So it's money well
You know,
invested.
the specialty court, it's not without accountability. That's what makes it successful. Is we have the accountability, but we also add the compassion and the treatment and everything else that is needed for folks to be successful. But absolutely, accountability is a huge piece of that.
So you're happy with your budget?
I'm very happy with it.
And we're happy with that you're happy. So thank you very much.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you.
Next, we have Justice of the Peace, Precinct 1, 2, and 3. Presiding Judge Stewart is available for any questions. Department pages begin page 143, staffing page 144.
Good morning, members of the board. I want to thank you for your time, and I especially want to express my appreciation on behalf of the three Justice of the Peace for the consideration of the budget review team. And speaking here today, I just wanted to express my appreciation for the consideration, especially in light of COVID-19 and the challenges that the county's faced. Obviously, through this process, we've had a great deal of direction from the county administration, also from the Arizona Supreme Court in terms of operations. And again, I just want to express appreciation to the county for all that you've done. Quite honestly, I also want to express appreciation to the court's employees. We really do have tremendous staff, and we've really been blessed. They've shown themselves in their desire to address the business of the courts in the county, and I'm just here, quite honestly, to address any questions that you may have for me.
I don't have any questions. I just want to tell you something. We don't get a chance. I don't get to see you that often, but I want to tell you that I've seen you grow personally and professionally for the last few years, and I commend you for that. You've done an excellent job. You center things. You've done a great job, and I just wanted to tell you that. I mean, the comments I get from most of the courts are that they're operating well, and I think it's a credit to every one of the Justice of the Peaces, but I think in some ways it goes back to you showing the way.
Thank you. I appreciate that. Obviously, I've been with the county for over 30 years, and in this, as I've mentioned, there's been a great deal of leadership that's been shown, and I respect those that have assisted us through this process. I've been tremendously blessed from my experience here with the county and now with the court. I had mentioned to Supervisor Porteous after meeting with the BRT, you know, we spend a lot of time in the court, a lot of time on the bench, and sometimes we don't have a lot of time to get out and meet with members of the BRT and with the county supervisors. And after that meeting, I'd mentioned to Supervisor Porteous when the Arizona Supreme Court was here, the justices, it just gave me an opportunity to reflect at what a blessing it is to work in the county with such great staff. I mean, I felt that in my time, that it just has brought forth what a great place it is to work in Yuma County with great people. So I really do appreciate that.
Long way from probation.
I'm sorry?
Long way from probation.
Long way. We're going to face a lot of challenges going forward. Obviously, the board recognizes those. The BRT has addressed those, and you know, there'll be challenges that lie ahead, but I think we're prepared to address those. So thank you.
All right, you're welcome. And any questions? No? Thank you. If you're happy with it, we're happy with it.
We're very thankful. We're very appreciative for the consideration of the BRT and the board.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Next, we have Juvenile Court. Tim Hardy, Director of Juvenile Court Services, is available for any questions. Department pages begin page 149, staffing page 151 through 152.
Good morning, Chairman Reyes and esteemed supervisors. I am completely satisfied with the recommended budget. I want to thank Susan and her crew. Never realized how important data is, but I think with Susan's leadership, we've learned that and the value of that. So I have no comments, but I'll answer any questions you may have.
Again, another one of those that we'd like to acknowledge. You've gone way beyond what we assigned you to do. And I think that shows again why it's so good, so nice to work in Yuma County. People like you make it nice to work in Yuma County. And we don't have, I don't think we do this enough, but I think that for some reason, I hope, everybody here realizes we have somehow assembled a team of people that are running these departments that are not only highly professional, but dedicated people who are dedicated to what they do. And it's a pleasure to see you guys grow into what you've grown into and be recognized nationally for the efforts that you guys have put out to change the lives of the people you touch. So I want to thank you for that.
Thank you.
Yeah, it's so different than what it used to be.
Yeah.
Commend you for thinking outside the box and coming up with great programs that benefit our kids.
Thank you very much.
Well, thank you. You need to wear a gun, though. Makes more of an impact. You can take it off when you get outside. The next department?
Next, we have Public Works. Joshua Scott, Public Works Director, is available for any questions. Department pages begin page 169, staffing 170 through 171.
Mr. Chairman, members of the board, Josh Scott, Public Works Director.
Are you okay?
You're good, sir. Yes.
You said you brought your bodyguard, so I figured you may, be concerned about it, But your budget, so it's fine? You're okay with your budget?
Yeah, and given the circumstances, we are extremely happy. This year, I think the budget process, at least Public Works, went probably smoother and was more transparent. Not that it wasn't already, but this year was exceptionally so, in my opinion.
I don't know if you heard what I said earlier about assembling such a great team of people that run the different departments, but I want to make that point also to you, because when you came in, you had some big shoes to fill, and you've done a great job, and we need to acknowledge that, not only in the budget, but also personally. I mean, you've taken care of a lot of these problems that have been lingering for a while. You make us think that the choices we make every once in a while, or that the administrator makes, that they work. So,
Well, thank you, sir. I appreciate that.
Josh, I just want to acknowledge the responsiveness of your department, particularly the little guy back there in the back.
Yeah,
Whenever I call him,
little one.
I mean, we're talking about response times, not in days, but in hours, or for street issues and repairs, days, not weeks and months. And it's very impressive. And so I want to commend you for that and the department. Jason, I appreciate you. He's the guy I typically call. I don't want to bother the head guy. So,
Well, thank you.
but I do appreciate the responsiveness. It's just always such a pleasure.
I appreciate that. I'll pass that on. It's not just me. We have.
Oh, no, you have a great team behind you.
Sure.
Well, thank you, because it's nice to hear good things all the time about the Public Works Department.
Yes.
Thank you.
All right.
Cool.
All right. So if you're happy, we're happy.
Very much so.
Thank you, Jason, for not beating up on us today. You better be careful, Craig. This is like a love fest so far.
All right.
So, you better
Appreciate
keep it
that.
up.
Good afternoon.
Afternoon.
Good afternoon.
We're gone over the budget. It seems to meet the needs we have, and so we're happy with that. We have put in for deputy director. That is to help us with the larger department projects that we have going on and so forth. And then we've also put in for a associate planner / DCI to improve our responsiveness with the
variety of complaints and cases that are ongoing out there. Beginning about mid-year 18, we started implementing abatement of a lot of the cases and not just taking things through the hearing officer process, and we have need for some additional support for that effort.
Any other questions?
Just a comment.
That's what I was gonna do too, is make a comment. I know I'm kind of a pain in the side with Craig and Maggie down there out in my district, because I have a lot of issues, but you guys are very responsive. You get out there, you do the best you can. George has just been outstanding with the Far West issue. They call in, he's there. He'll go out to their houses, but you've got a great bunch of people down there working for you. And I know you're overloaded, but I do appreciate the response and what you guys do.
Oh, what can I say? I finally got your cell phone number.
Mr. Chairman.
Anything
Sure,
comes up, give us
Supervisor
a call.
McLeod. Sorry.
I just want to commend you for the great job you've done, and I know I was a real thorn about some of the zoning
He
violations.
is a real thorn. He wasn't a real thorn. He is.
But, you know, I appreciate your willingness to find a way. I mean, I'm extremely pleased with where we ended up. I think it's a fair process. It's better for our constituents. It still gets the job done. But we have got to be one of the best places to do business. And having people get caught up in problems out of no fault of their own was very frustrating to me. And I know it was a little frustrating to your staff trying to ask them not to do what they're trained to do. And so I know it wasn't easy, but your leadership, I appreciate your leadership, and I appreciate where you got us to today. And I'm very proud of that. I like where we're at.
And likewise, I appreciate the feedback that I get, because if I don't know what you're hearing, it makes it more difficult for us to respond.
Yeah. I appreciate your customer service, that you're working really hard to increase customer service as far as complaints or zoning problems that are happening. Your attention to customer service is really, really appreciated.
Cutting times down as far as responses. A lot of different things, permitting. You guys have just been doing a great job. Keep it
I'll
up.
give you the ultimate compliment. I use you as an example for the city of San Luis and Somerton every once in a while, to look forward to and to understand some of the mechanisms that you put in place that deal with the public to me in a better way than we've ever had. So, thank you very much. You okay with the budget?
Yeah.
All right. Thank you.
Thank you.
Another good choice by Susan.
Yeah.
Next, we have Facilities Management. David Hillen, Facilities Management Director, is available
I
for
don't
any
know about this.
questions.
Good morning, Chairman Reyes, members of the board. Dave Hillen, Director of Facilities Management. We're happy with the way our budget looks this year going forward, and I'm happy to answer any questions you may have.
You know, notwithstanding the situation in the other side of the street, everything else has been okay. It's been fine. As a matter of fact, I like to say that whatever we said before, we could repeat on your behalf. You have also elevated your department to another level. And, you know, we should acknowledge that more often. So we're trying to do that today.
With your permission, I'd like to just highlight one person in my staff. You know, a time like this when certain things are maybe a little uncertain budget-wise and whatnot, the importance of a really effective preventive maintenance program is much more visible. And John Perriott, our Deputy Director, who's been with the county for a number of years, over I'd say the last 5 years, has really taken our preventive maintenance program on his shoulders and more than doubled the number of preventive maintenance work orders that we perform each month, each year. And that means our systems and our equipment, our facilities are in better condition and operating better, and gives us a higher sense of confidence that we won't have those unexpected surprises, and therefore, you know, more comfortable than with the budget situation. So definitely, John definitely does not like to be highlighted or acknowledged in any way. So if you do see him, make sure you give him a pat on the back and make him uncomfortable.
Right now,
Good.
There you go. That's right.
It was just gonna look weird, but you know, we have these meetings and I hardly ever see anyone wearing a mask. It must be because we want to know who they are before they come in. They're all wearing guns and stuff. So, but you know, this is not a good way to show people to wear a mask all the time, is it? But we're doing social
We're safe,
distancing.
yes.
We're social distancing.
Lance got hers.
Yeah. All right, well, thank you, David. If you're happy with your budget, we're happy with that you're happy, so.
We're happy.
All right,
Looking forward.
thank you.
Thank you.
Capital improvement, that's the same thing, right?
Next, we have engineering. Christopher Young, county engineer, is available for any questions. Department pages begin page 105, staffing 106 through 107.
Hi, good morning, Mr.
Morning.
Chair and supervisors, everyone. We're happy. But I would like to take a second to echo the comments of some of the folks that have come before. BRT team has been excellent to work with, as the finance staff and all the folks over in administration. Also give a shout out to the Public Works team, Jason and Josh, of course, and we worked really well together. I think we have a good partnership with the HERF Fund and breaking that out, the ebbs and flows of the HERF Fund. There's going to be a lot more ebbs, I think, coming up.
Yeah, a lot.
But also, if I could just say that our team, engineering staff, the engineers, project managers have done a good job in getting projects out to bid this past year, put in a lot of long hours, and we're pretty excited about some of the results. I know that for a while, we had a bunch of money built up, and I think you're starting to see the results of those projects coming forward. So without further ado, unless you have questions about the operating budget, any questions about the operating budget?
No,
I'm going to pick on Frank, and he's going to walk us through not only our CIP budget, but the overall CIP budget. We're both here for questions, if you have any. Thank you very much.
Good morning, Chairman Reyes, members of the board. Frank Sanchez, Department of Engineering. Just going to briefly go through the capital improvement program. As you're aware, the CIP is comprised and proposed of projects that range from building construction, remodeling, infrastructure improvements, transportation, flood control projects, and special grant projects. These projects are funded through special funds, special taxing district funds, federal funds, HERF funds, and of course the general fund. This year we have a wide variety of projects, some of which are continuing from previous years and some that are new. We have 7 sections to the CIP. I'll show section 1, which is the engineering HERF section. And instead of going through all of them, please feel free to ask any questions.
Remind everyone, you should have a book, this book in front. So, if you need to follow it, this is kind of difficult to, to see some of the lettering, but we do have a booklet here provided by the department that basically follows that. Okay?
Section 1 is the engineering, which is what we're currently showing up here.
I'd just like to highlight, what was it, number 2? Traffic signal at 15th and, what is it?
15th Avenue.
That was the sheriff's, implied situation about sending people to manage that. So he made it clear, he doesn't think he has that many people to start sending to do some, traffic control. So better hurry up with that one.
That's true. We do reach out to the sheriff's department asking, before we want to implement any improvements, improvements cost. So we want to make sure, first of all, see if enforcement is the solution to some of these issues. And so we do reach out a lot to the sheriff's department. I do appreciate their assistance in going out there and monitoring speeds, setting up speed trailers and so forth. But I do understand that they're limited in the amount of personnel they can have out on the field. So we're working hard to get 15 and 8 constructed.
The thing that I would like to highlight also, Frank, is that this is a 5-year plan. So when people look at this, please do not look at all this list of items and think they're all going to get done in 2020, 21. They're actually a 5-year plan. So some of these projects have been assigned for a different date or for a different year. So just want to make sure, because you get exceedingly excited if you see, you know, like your intersection in there and you see it and you say, oh, wow, they're gonna fix that intersection and it's for 2024. So,
That is correct. The funding shows fiscal year 21, which is next year, shows the projects that are currently funded for fiscal year 21. And as you mentioned, the remaining projects do have funding throughout the remaining of the next 5 years. So if there's no other questions on section 1, section 2.
No, I was just gonna say in section 1, you have a certain amount allocated. I think it was like $800,000 for traffic signals, but to be determined. That's moved up to fiscal year 25 though. So I got excited too soon. When I looked at, you know, I said, oh, $825,000 worth of traffic signals. Then I reminded myself that that was on the list up for 2025. So I just.
It's just a placeholder. We're constantly evaluating intersections for traffic signals. And so if we do have one that needs to be constructed, then we have a placeholder for it in 2025.
Gotcha.
So the section 2 is public facilities. We have 5 projects that are currently budgeted in fiscal year 21.
You have one of those.
Yeah, the top one. It's kind of a little difficult right now.
Yeah.
I can't even see it anymore.
Okay. If there are no questions, I'll move on to section 3, flood control district. We have three major projects, one big project.
20-year one?
Oh, it's a smoker park. You were gonna leave before you see that.
Uh-huh.
So
16 years.
Look, it better
won't
not
be
be
done.
my, you know, his story.
It won't be done by December, will it?
It took Ferguson.
No.
It took Ferguson, so, you know, all his life to try to get that done, and now.
We're working with the contractor. As you're aware, we do have a contractor on board that's working on getting his work plan approved to submit to a DWR. So as soon as that is approved, which we expect them to resubmit that work plan this week, we'll get that over to ADWR. Once ADWR approves it, then we'll issue the notice to proceed to the contractor. So we might see a little bit of work starting here within the next 2 months.
Is there a chance to change the Somerton area drainage improvement south to Gaston San Luis Outfall Basin discharge? No?
Well, the Somerton Avenue has plans that are close to 100% completion.
I was just trying to bring a rise out of the supervisor, you know, that area down there. It's a $4 million project. It's almost half as big as a smucker park. So it may take another, 5 or 6 years to get it done.
It's a 3-phase project. There's 3 areas in Somerton that we're looking to improve drainage. So yeah, it is a fairly big project. So if no other questions, we'll go on to section 4 for housing.
Right.
And housing has 2 projects this fiscal year. Section 5, the jail district. They had proposed 2 projects this fiscal year, but the BRT moved those projects to fiscal year 22.
Yeah, we heard it this morning. Oh, we heard that.
If I could explain that, Gil had advised, well, first of all, the jail district doesn't have any cash to pay for these projects. So we were recommending doing debt service, issuing bonds for those. And in 2022, one of their debt service payments will drop off. So then this could replace it. So that was the timing, is that they could then afford it because their other debt service would drop. So that's why we moved it out to a future year.
That's good, that could have been an answer we'd given him when he was beating up on us. Well, it's okay, man, it's fine, it's fine, it's fine, no, he couldn't, no, we were afraid to stop him, he was on a roll. Yeah, but that's a good answer for him. I mean, obviously, and it's true. I mean, a camera system upgrade or the smoke control system, for them, it's an immediate need. And I can understand how it gets caught up in that situation. But I mean, the funding source for the jail district is so low. It's part of our discussion, how we can straighten that up a little bit. So it's difficult. It's a challenge to be able to meet those needs, given the current conditions of some of those funds. Anyway, go on to the next one.
Information technology, section 6.
Oh, yeah.
There's 2 projects in fiscal year 21 and 1 project in fiscal year 22. And if there are no questions, move on to.
What's the Oracle upgrade?
We have
servers.
We have somebody that comes in and tells us.
That was approved last year, or this year, so it's a continuing project. That will move our Oracle to the cloud, which is our main financial system, and it will upgrade it because it's about to be unsupported by Oracle.
So that's why it seems to be again.
Right, it's moving forward, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
I thought Hill was the Oracle.
I thought we did that.
It was moving them over to the cloud. Hill, you were the Oracle, I thought, but now I figured out you're not, we were moving you to the cloud and we decided, you're going to stay.
Thank you.
Moving on to section 7, community development. They actually did not submit any projects this year. And the last section is the unfunded section.
That one's a real bad list.
Yeah. Totally 49 million. Nice.
What is the e-citation program? Is it the equipment necessary to cite people?
It's electronic.
It's electronic. Isn't that already on?
A lot of places use them. Mr.
Yeah,
Chairman.
I mean, I know the city of San Luis uses it. Not that I've been a victim of that, but I heard they use it.
It downloads it right into the court system.
No, why wouldn't it be a capital improvement fund?
Because this list, if you'll notice, that program was submitted in 2007, and was not funded, and it's never been brought up since by the department. So
that's weird.
It's remaining on a list. I think the unfunded list is a little misleading because some things seemed like a priority at the time, and now they're not.
Yeah, and I think we need to review that list. Some of those items, like the e-citation, I thought that would be something that, it's technology that is readily available, and the cost is not that high. It's like body cameras now. They're now almost a requirement that you have a camera in your vehicle and a camera in your body. E-citation, I thought, was something that already been implemented. When I saw it here, I go like, is that what I'm thinking it is? Which is, you issue a ticket, it prints out, and then it goes to the court system immediately. That is, that saves time, and especially because if you've been an officer, which most of you haven't, but I was at one point in time, the sign on the wall said that the work wasn't done until the paperwork was completed. And so this is basically a way to do the paperwork, and it immediately appears on the system. That's the extent of it.
We'll work with the department heads to actually go through these lists and remove those projects that they no longer feel are necessary or have a priority. Engineering did go through the engineering projects, and we did eliminate a lot of old projects.
Some of this stuff is like the robustness project. I wouldn't even know what that means. Okay, well, anyway, those are the ones not funded, so there's not even a point of bringing them up. They may just stir some feelings from someone out there. That's it?
That concludes my presentation. So if you have any questions.
Just a comment, I hope that the extension of Avenue B between 16 and 18 gets done before I have to wave goodbye.
We have a contractor on board, that they were ready to go. There's some CenturyLink facilities that are in conflict. They'll be relocated by the middle of June. So the contractor is going to start middle of June.
Thank you very much. We don't want to get off the subject because the attorney is giving me the evil eye already. So we're moving on. Thank you. So everybody's, okay, so that actually ends the presentation from the departments, right? Do we have anybody that we left out or missing or anything? If not, then we're gonna take a 5-minute break to sort of retool, because the next item is the discussion and direction regarding the fiscal year budget. And for that, I think Gil has prepared some presentations for us regarding the 4 issues that we had discussed yesterday and their impact on the budget.
That is correct, Mr. Sherman. We're going to be updating that spreadsheet.
All right, so take a 5-minute break. Just relax for a second before we start with this, if it's not a problem with anyone. Everyone, we're back. We're back from the 5-minute recess. We're a little lagging behind a little bit. Yeah, we're back. Okay, so we're gonna go on to item number 18, which is a discussion and direction regarding the fiscal year 2020-2021 budget. Susan, we discussed, I think, 4 different issues yesterday. And you guys have made those changes in there. Can you show us anything?
So what we're going to do, just to recap what those 4 items were. Number 1 was go to a 20.00% fund balance, which meets our guidance policy, and reduce the tax rate by that the excess funds for that. Number 2 was to give the pay increase July 1 and cut expenses elsewhere. Number 3 was to add the exceptional program, the $77,000. And number 4 was really not a change here, but it would be to notify by October that potentially we'd use the flexibility language if we need to help the jail district.
But that doesn't do anything to the budget. It really
So just the 3 items
just
would
a
then
shift.
be. Now, do you want us to show these cumulative all together or one at a time to see the bottom line for each one?
Well, it's scary.
I have a question.
Sure.
What,
And then anything else that you wanted to talk about from today's
Well,
meeting?
I think the only thing we're gonna have to talk about is whether there's any way to adjust anything on the sheriff's budget, administrative budget, and that we can take up as a discussion. Let's see what the excuse me, let's see what the changes, all the not recommendations, but all the issues that we talked about yesterday would do to the budget. Do you have that?
Yes, Mr. Chairman, members of the board, Gil Villegas, CFO. First thing that I want to bring to your attention is I print out another set of the handout number 2. What I did, I included the 2 columns that were missing from yesterday's presentation about our delay of expenditures.
That she was distributing early? That's the one right there. It says, wait, hold on.
Yeah, it says
5/5/20. Yeah, it's the last one. Yeah. Christie was distributing them earlier.
That is correct. So the first item that we were talking about was what would it take to bring the fund balance to 20% exactly? And once we put in the calculation, we saw a change on the tax rate of 0.0355, 3 cents.
3.5 cents.
3.5 cents, in essence. So my understanding is that the board would like to see what will be the impact if we enter the new property tax rate, the new calculated property tax rate of 2.4933 to our spreadsheet. By doing so, I'm just going to scroll down to the spreadsheet. At the change here, if the keyword works with me, come on. There you go. Now, we need to take into consideration the allowance, the 3.5% allowance for uncollectibles. You will see how our number is dropping to exactly 20%. This is how much more we will need. I'm moving my cursor right there, 499,690. So in essence, we will have to make up that difference in any of those 3 categories in reserves.
Why? Why can't we make it up on the set aside for the fleet management? That's $800,000 that we don't have to necessarily put there this
Correct.
year.
If it was the pleasure of the board, take it from contingency. There are other options as well.
Right.
Okay, so the other item was to add the incentive policy. So reminder, if we do this for the general fund, we have to do it for all the districts as well. 77,000. Our fund balance is going to be decreased by 0.90%. And the
how do you
salary scale?
77.
If we are
How do you
to
go, wait. How do you go from 499 and then you add 77,000 and you come up with 590 something?
Because it changes your 15% and your 5%
remember, the contingency is based on the total uses. The more that you increase your total uses, your contingency is going to increase a little bit as well.
Oh, I see. So that, gee whiz.
But the 77,000 isn't That's just, we're putting it in there. It's not saying that we're gonna have the money to do that.
Well, it's a budgeted item, and when we do a balanced budget, you have to go and figure out, if you put something in, you got to take something out to balance it out. It's either going to have to come from contingency and reserves, or it's going to have to be a revenue source, which is what we're talking. We're talking about reducing the revenue source by $500,000, and therefore that, we need to find it somewhere. And now we add another $77,000, and that's what he's telling us. Now we need $590-some thousand to keep our reserve at 20%. Is that correct?
No.
Yes.
No, to keep it at 20%, we'd have to
You need
come up with
another
that.
$80,000.
That's right.
Or increase.
Because it was at 20%.
Yeah,
so
that's
it's
right.
at
You
77.
need to replace the 77 again with revenues or chips or
Or
revenue.
reduction in expenditures, Mr. Chairman.
Yeah, that's right. Okay, what else?
So, you have something else?
Is there anything else?
There was another item, I believe it was to consider
That's the big one.
scale, but we have already budgeted for the entire
So it's
impact.
just a matter of when you pay it, right?
Exactly.
We would not be sequestering it then.
Then we're not gonna be
Yeah,
sequestering
just don't
this.
sequester it.
That would be zero.
The budget, the money's still there. I mean, we're not gonna come up with new money to cover that. It's just simply we're paying it up front instead of back.
So there's no
Not up
impact.
front, but we started in July.
But the sequestration.
So the sequester
So
total
we're
has been
short
decreased.
592 with the three things that we talked about
That's the
yesterday?
sequester total?
Yes, the sequester total is gonna be
Million three.
$3,379,000.
And that consists of what? The
You can look at it.
half-step incentive, right?
Yeah, it consists of the vehicles, a non-department, the 1.5 million for fleet management, equipment, capital outlay, $69,000, and some of the items being retroactive.
Now,
Fleet management, it's only $500,000 this year. Why do you have 1.5?
That would be the total disbursement.
it's all together, but that's what it's saying.
When do you plan to start buying vehicles? Assuming that 500,000 goes in there to complete the program, when would you be buying vehicles? I thought it wouldn't be until the following fiscal year.
The entire amount goes over to the Fleet Management Internal Service Fund, which would start the process of buying vehicles, but then they have to start charging premiums to all the departments to
They would start
continue
buying-
that program.
They would start buying vehicles this fiscal year?
It would be next fiscal
It
year.
is the next fiscal, right?
Correct.
This fiscal year, the vehicles in the general fund are that $985,000 amount.
Well, that's the other, in other words, we decided to buy 8 and leave 8 for later, right?
The sheriff.
For the
only.
sheriff.
Yeah.
That's right. So that's
That's
why
on
you
the
have,
vehicles.
that's why you have only the vehicles there. And we're not saying, but we're not saying we're not buying them. We're saying we will wait a few months to buy them. Is that what we're saying?
Yes, till January 1st, late December, January 1st, to make sure that the revenues are coming in. If the revenues are coming in, we would not recommend buying them at all. We're only buying even less than this number.
To me, I have a problem, for lack of a better word, with setting aside a large amount of money for the fleet vehicles when we're saying we're not buying these vehicles for the sheriff's department. I mean, it seems to me the priorities are a little skewed there. To me, I mean, I don't know how everybody else feels, but I think we ought to realize that a sheriff's department vehicle, a squad car, is probably more needed immediately than vehicles for the rest of the county to use in their day-to-day activities. I mean, I look at this and I go, okay, so we're not saying we're not buying them. We're saying we're going to delay the purchase of it. And we're saying I'm saying we don't need to set aside this year another $500,000 for that. Use it to balance the budget. That's what I'm saying. I mean, in that way we can meet at least what I think the board wants to do this year. At least what I want to do this year. The board, I think, is leaning towards reducing the property tax rate, at least by some amount, to compensate for the fact that people are going to be in dire economic straits, and we want to make sure that we acknowledge that, so that if there's an appraisal increase, there will be at least a little bit offset by the reduction in the tax rate. Second, I like to see the salaries for the employees begin the process of salary for the employees July the 1st. Again, I think the sheriff made the point that their people are first responders, and I mean, I'm not sure what we'll do with hazard pay because I think that's a different issue. But I think not acknowledging the fact that these people are putting their lives in the line and that we have employees that 2% increase overall, or a half a step and a half a step, it really isn't much. And when we delay those increases, we're only making it so that when we have to make a decision, the gap is bigger, between now and the market. So even a 2% increase over a year, it still keeps up a little bit with inflation and with some of the other factors that I think play a part in creating the disparities between market rate and what we pay our employees. So delaying it only makes it, come in harder when you get to it. So to me, we can do both of those things and still have a balanced budget that has a 20% reserve, which is what we set aside as the rule. So I don't know what.
Well, I'll tell you what. Well, Supervisor Simmons.
Supervisor Simmons?
Well, looking at the balanced budget, you were talking about the vehicles for the sheriff's office, and like the sheriff said, if they redesign a vehicle, right now the vehicles stay the same. So your partitions fit, your consoles fit, the lights fit, but they do a retool in the new body style. All that's got to be new and replaced. So you're talking an extra, probably anywhere from $5,000 to $10,000 extra a vehicle to re-equip it, to retrofit the new stuff.
Are they changing the body styles?
I don't know. You don't know. That's what I'm saying. They
can.
It's like Chevy changed this last year or 2 years ago, which reconfigures everything. But we need to figure out a way to get. I'd like to get 3 new deputies for the department.
So that would be 19.
Like I said, they get, and like I said, yeah, I kind of maybe a little favorite, but I see what they go through when they're out on the road. It's copy call, copy call, copy call. They try to go in and do their reports as soon as they sit down. To do their report, copy call, they're putting their stuff back up and going again. They don't have time to get out and be proactive. Everything is reactive. And I'm sorry, the community wants to see their police or their sheriffs out there patrolling, being proactive, involved in the community, and that cuts your crime down. And right now, there's no way they can do it. They're half the size of the city, and they're still taking the same amount of calls. And it's not fair to one of our officers. And plus, you get a call, you're out, and I can't remember the number of times I took a call out in Hyder by myself, which would, if you lived in the city, you'd have 4 or 5 officers show up to back you up.
Okay.
And you don't have that. But anyway, I'd like to see the vehicles at least 10 to 12 instead of the 8, and the overtime for the ME's office.
Look, let me see if I can back up a little bit, maybe for the rest, just to remind us all that there are 2 types of expenses that we incur when we create a budget. One is called the recurring expenses, which means that every year that's a base budget. So that means that if we increase employment, for example, we'll be increasing employment forever. Well, not forever. I mean, from this point on. The other one is a one-time expense, which is, for example, if we approve $27,000 of overtime, well, we're doing it this year, right? There's no
reoccurring.
There's no guarantee that we'll approve it next year. Or if we buy vehicles this year, we bought vehicles this year, right? So we spend the money and we can take it from a non-recurring source. The problem is we're now talking about cutting the recurring source of revenues, which is taxes, property taxes, by $500,000 and asking to increase the recurring costs by 3 employees and, so and so and so forth. So it's really difficult to me to see how you balance this out.
I have a way to do that. I appreciate the board working with me on my desires, but I can tell you the sheriff made a very compelling case.
Mm-hmm.
And so I would like to know, what does it cost us per deputy? I mean, all things
You got to give them
included.
Vehicle, you got to give them uniform.
It's for each deputy plus vehicle, it's $155,450. So they had put in a request for 2 deputies and vehicles and small, the tools and equipment that go with them, and that's $310,900 for 2 deputies.
Okay,
And
so here would be my proposal. And the number I had in mind, Supervisor Simmons, was 2.
The ones that request.
And that's what they asked for. So what I'd be willing to do is adjust the proposed tax rate back up sufficiently to cover the cost of those deputies, because true, what do we do that's more important than public safety, right? And so, like I said, I appreciate the board working with me, but I am willing to back off on my request a little bit so that we can fund 2 deputies.
Minus plus 310,900.
And I think
You still will end up with
will
a
you
small
when you get a
minor.
chance, Gil, would you go to Altex?
Hold on a minute, let's see what
It would
that,
be 1.13 cents reduction.
A 1.13. Okay, I can go along with that if that would be the pleasure of the board. And then,
Aside-
Gil, would you find the Altex?
well, as I said
To get
before,
done.
if you are going to incur some recurring cost, we need to make sure that revenues are there to cover. And this is what it does. So I'd be okay with that. There would be a minor reduction in property taxes, and we could cover those two positions.
I'll go with 2
They
positions.
wanted to see the Altex.
I mean, it's a start, but it's something I think
It
we need
is.
to look at every
Yeah,
year.
And when you look, I thought we'd given them some positions before.
Well, I
but
think what we
apparently
did
not.
in the past was
But we did spend a
use
lot
the
of
money to do the market adjustment.
Yes.
To keep, so that the attrition rate would be less.
We spent $1 million.
That's right, we spent $1
Getting them
million
up to
bucks.
speed.
But that would put them equal with the city or a little
So,
above the city.
Yeah, we got them where they needed to be, and it showed in
And
lack
we
of
all-
turnover.
You also
So-
approved 20 vehicles for them that they didn't mention this year.
Last year you did 20 vehicles.
20 vehicles, yeah.
Yeah, you know what?
And this year they're asking for 16, right? So,
we'll
and
give
in the
them-
recommended budget is 8. Okay,
So the
so,
additional 8 vehicles is about $387,000.
but that's already budgeted.
Yeah, if you did additional 8, it's
So-
another 380.
No, we're not.
What the board could do, if you look at Altex, if the legislature does not go back into session, or even if they do and they don't bang us for an additional $450,000, we've got $500,000 that we can buy the sheriff vehicles with.
Yeah, but that's.
And the
if
budget's
that-
still balanced, right?
Yes, but that's not, let's put it this way, we can make that change during the year. In other words, we can just transfer the funds and do that, if that happens. We don't need to tinker with it right now, because we couldn't, we don't know what that's going to be. So setting aside $500,000 later to cover the additional vehicles that the sheriff needs is something that we can commit to, but we don't need to make it in the budget.
That's my point.
Yeah, we can.
That we can
Yeah, we
commit
can
to purchasing the additional vehicles.
There's a lot of stuff in here that may or may not happen depending on, what the situation comes up. So I think the sheriff is going to be a lot more lenient in respect to the vehicles if he sees that we gave him the officers and we're trying to, keep up with his vehicle request. We gave him 20 last year, 8 this year and 2 officers. I think it's a good trade-off. I think he's going to see that as, I'd rather put more people out there, even if they're in older vehicles. And, you guys catch up. If we're able to, we'll catch up.
In vehicles if we can.
In vehicles if we can, but at this particular time, I know what you're saying. What you're saying is there may be a possibility to actually give him more vehicles if this works out. And I'm saying that's fine. Now, the other thing that we have to address is the fact that 2 officers require $300 and some odd thousand, and you have already addressed that. So I think we're okay, with the 2 officers and the 8 vehicles.
Well, if we do the 2 officers and maybe 10 vehicles, that way we include the 2
Trading
vehicles.
Things in the
2
casino,
vehicles
right?
For the 2 new
Well, you
officers.
do need 2 vehicles for 2 new people.
Well, the 310,000 includes vehicle for the 2 new officers.
Okay, so that would up there, if we
that's-
approve
They
2
have 2 more
officers, then that's
vehicles.
2 vehicles
So it is
added
10
to the
vehicles.
10 vehicles. and
Okay,
2
so that's
officers.
10 vehicles at least, okay.
Yeah, well, that's what happens when,
So
when
then
the
we could
question was
authorize
asked,
the
how much
additional
does an
8
officer cost? It's the
if the legislature
salary
doesn't.
and the equipment.
Yeah, I just didn't know we were
The guns, the
including that. I want to
uniforms.
make sure we were including those 2
And then you're-
vehicles in.
Make the
So it makes
adjustment.
a total of 10.
So, Mr.
He's already
Chairman.
done that. It's already in there.
Okay.
Mr. Chairman, members of the board, so summarizing what we want to do, then we are going to adjust our change in tax rate to account for the additional 310,900, that would be a reduction of 1.13 cents in our rate. Our new rate would be
Oh.
251.75.
I didn't know you did that much, Gil. I was looking to just cover the salaries, because this would, changing the tax rate covers recurring expense. That's what I was after. And then looking for some one-time money. I'm sorry I wasn't clear.
So you're approving people without equipment and vehicles?
No, well, no, in the tax rate, because the tax rate change.
And then reduce something else to
And then
offset the
reduce something that's one time.
Okay, so it's.
I think
Two extra vehicles.
you're slicing.
This scenario so we can see the numbers.
Okay,
I
sure.
need to change the rate
It's
here.
still 592 below.
That will be the new rate. And also, we wanted to increase two officers, two personnel.
Yeah.
Ongoing for two is $190,900.
$100,000.
And the one time is $120,000.
That's what I'd like to do. I'd like to cover the salaries only
199.
with the tax
Oh,
rate.
we gotta come up with the money to buy the vehicles. Why are you
It's all
backing
over the
up,
place. Mr. Chairman?
I get you.
Plus
It's just simply, you had a really good idea, now you're complicating it.
So adding
No, my idea was to change the tax rate.
120,000. Well, that's
Yeah, but two
120.
positions, every time we hire someone, every time, you know, that we hire someone, we're gonna spend the same amount of money. Because we don't hire people and not buy
94,000 is the
equipment
But
and
that
uniform.
equipment is one time. I'm covering the recurring.
Oh, no, but I mean, every time you hire someone, it's a recurring cost. Every time you hire someone,
Right.
you have to equip them and you
we're
have to give
paying
them
for
uniform.
that with property tax.
Oh, we're not paying for that with property tax. We're just simply making sure that the revenues are there to pay for it.
Right. It's a recurring expense. So I wanted to cover the recurring expense and then use one-time money. Because we've got one-time money all over, even with your,
Yeah, we do.
with your
120,
board
you need
contingency, you've
120.
got it with the 500,000. You could reduce that by the cost of two vehicles, and we're almost to our goal for the vehicle replacement program.
Yeah.
So you see what I'm doing?
I see what
Yes,
you're
I
doing.
see what you're doing.
What you're doing is you're trying to keep the tax, property tax reduction as high as possible.
Yes.
Now,
Yes, we are.
but now you're down to 19.83% fund balance.
Yeah. Now we need to find the money to cover the $600,000.
And why did it drop that much if we changed the tax rate to cover the cost?
Because you're at, because you still
Oh,
have
you
to pay
already
for the
had
two vehicles.
590.
Still have to pay for the two vehicles and the other one-time expenses. So we had to account for those in there.
Yeah,
Okay,
that's right. That's
but we
what
can
it-
have to
pull it
cut
from other
something.
areas. Yeah, we'll have to cut
You have to
something
cut
by
something
that
else.
amount,
Right.
right?
That's-
Okay,
yeah.
and so,
So the
I mean,
one-time
for-
expenses in the vehicle is $120,000. And if we add the two deputies, it would be $199,900.
They're already there. It's just that we need to find places, either that
for
or
the one-time
for
money.
the one-time money.
And so there's a couple ways.
Yeah, there's a contingency amount that we never use that we can reduce by 100,000, and then we keep moving, and the $500,000 we set aside
Contingency?
for the
Yeah,
fleet
drop
management.
that to 250.
I don't know if we want to go that low.
I don't think so, Lynn. You don't know what's gonna happen. I mean, you can find better places to cut than on the contingency amount. The contingency amount is the only flexible amount of money you have to deal with
But let me
serious
go,
stuff.
let me go back to what I was
We've
just
reduced
saying.
the amount that we need.
But it's still 19.83%.
Yes,
But the contingency is still 19.83. Okay, never
that is
mind.
correct. It's because we have, the adjustment goes to the amount that is needed in our contingency.
Look up, what happened to the $500,000 set aside for the fleet management?
Yeah.
Did we take that out?
No,
Where I'm
they
going.
didn't take
No,
It's
it
still
it's
there
in there.
because that was a policy decision
Yeah,
from
well,
3
we're
years
changing the
ago.
policy.
So that's fine.
That's what I want to
Take it out
use that
first.
$500,000.
Take it out first, and then let's see what it does to our bottom line, and then we'll see how much money we take out of the, just 500,000. Okay, let's see what it does on below. See, that
Go back to the.
contingency, put 300,000 and see what happens.
Leave that at 300.
Hey, look, I'm trying to move it up, dude.
Just go back to 500
350
and see.
maybe, and that should clear us
300.
out. Okay, so we're $64,000 off. What do you want to get them from? I recommend board member, supervisor salary. Specifically Supervisor McLeod's salary.
Well, we're still well above the 20%.
Yeah, we're still.
Yeah.
So we're
Happened
fine.
That's
back
weird
on the
to me.
tax rate,
But we
because
haven't-
didn't change the
It's
tax
weird to
rate.
me. That didn't move much.
And what's the rate now?
The tax rate is 2.5175.
Oh, you gotta go up a little.
He
That's
wanted
where
to-
you lose him.
Oh, we need to go
Let's
back
see,
and
he
change
hasn't
that,
adjusted the
'cause he
tax
only
rate yet.
wanted
You gotta take that 46% off of
So
there.
go back to the entire.
Yep.
Gotta redo the tax rate to lower it even more so you can end up
190.
with taking care of the
900.
excess, which is $75,000. So gotta give it back to
Lower
the,
this to,
So go back, take that number out. Change, eliminate 310,900 and change it to 190,900. 90900. Yep, that was the staff, that was the ongoing cost of 2 deputies. So now it's 2 cents.
Okay, and a 20.34.
now we are $180,000 short.
Right.
So why don't you, why do you have still the 0.34% on the fund balance reserves? Why don't you just eat it up?
Well, that's where the 180 is going to come from.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's what I mean.
But that's not in your calculation, Gil?
yeah, the 180 is included in this.
It's included in the
three items.
calculation. We still end up
Yes.
at 20.34.
The 19.3
But you
includes
showed the
all these
$180,000.
4 items.
You do understand that we're $180,000 short, right? That we gotta find
No.
somewhere to cut. Yes, we are.
That's still with a $500,000 board contingency.
Yeah, but
Why
that's
can't we
not-
pull 100?
Because we had to balance it. We gotta balance it. It's gotta come from somewhere. If we're gonna get it from the BOS contingency, that's fine, but you gotta get it from somewhere.
If we pull 180 from there, that leaves us 320 in the contingency.
No,
When was the last time we used it?
The 180 is already
It's
calculated
already
in the
included
contingency.
Mr. Chairman, members
It's
of the
already in
board,
there.
yeah.
We're not short.
Take the red out of it then.
Not real. No, you have, so change the 500 minus 180,719.
That's what I'm saying.
and
That's
see
what you're
see
saying.
what it
Zero.
shows. Yes.
That's what I'm
All it's
saying.
gonna do is
That's what
increase
they're
your
in
fund
essence
balance.
doing. So we need to show it.
Well, no.
No, it's not.
No, it's not. It's just gonna wipe it out.
Whoops.
Yes.
It's gonna
No.
wipe out that 180 needed and make it,
Go back. 719.
and that's gonna make it zero, and that may be.
So in essence, your board contingent, yeah, go ahead. Oh, go ahead. So that's your board contingency is now
The
319.
question is, why is there another 34.34% on the fund balance reserve?
Mr. Chairman, the policy calls for 20%.
I know,
So
20%.
we have 15% in this amount and we have 5% in that amount. It's already being included.
I
In
know.
addition to the 20% that we have already considered, we are accounting for the BOS contingency of $319,000.
And that's what that 0.34 is?
That's what the 0.34 is, 319,000.
Okay, we'll take that out.
Really?
Just do the 2, just the 15 and the 5. Some.
Hey, that's not a bad looking budget.
Now,
No,
I'm gonna be
sorry,
a,
just leave it.
We still don't have the 2 vehicles.
But
I'm gonna be a spokesperson on this. Have we included the 26,000 in overtime? Where do we plug that in for the ME's office?
It's not in there yet. Did you want to add
well,
that?
take another $19,000 from the BOS contingency and we'll come up with the other stuff.
It's 26.
It's 26, I know, but
Just subtract 26 out of there and see what happens.
you guys, why are you doing that?
Keeping it simple.
No, you're taking it from the only place that there's flexibility to use it.
Mr. Chairman, you have this $14 million and the $4.7 million. You can move that money wherever you want to as well. It's not just the 500 that's available to you, if necessary.
Yeah. And how many, like I said, over the years, how many times have we dipped into the 500,000?
Well, that's
We
because
did years ago, but that was
you've-
before the public
Yeah.
legal defender
Yeah.
got so much
We-
better.
yeah, we
It used to
did.
be an important part of the budget.
Yeah, it used to be. And you know, the reason.
But we
the
don't
reason
have
we
the
don't
2
use it is
additional
because
vehicles
we've
in
been
there
so
yet, correct?
conservative with everything else, and that's not a bad thing.
So we've got 10 vehicles for the sheriff in that budget.
Well, with.
10 vehicles,
it's the
two
two
extra,
new
two extra
vehicles
deputies.
Plus the 8 out
Plus
of
the
the 16
20-some
he
thousand
requested.
dollars for the overtime for the medical examiner. Is that okay?
What's that?
So that, like he was saying, that gives us the 26,000 in overtime,
Somewhere up
the
there,
2 new
expenses.
deputies,
Let me
and
check something
additional
really
2
quick
trucks.
before-
So that puts up a total of 10.
Yeah.
And a drop in the tax rate of 2 cents?
2 cents in the tax rate?
Wait just a second for Gil to do his thing here.
You're not keeping up?
I feel for Gil. You're doing a great job, Gil.
We're gonna send you to the
It's gotta
cloud.
be
Gil.
hard to keep up.
082.
You know, the only thing I've got a problem with is the sheriff's gonna come every year the same way.
No.
No, the BRT needs to talk to.
No, it doesn't work with the sheriff. Sheriff is, you know, come.
You gotta look, the last few years he's been happy. I mean, we haven't heard anything, everything's been, yeah.
This year was an exception.
Yeah.
Okay.
So this includes
An
a drop in
election year.
tax rate to 2.5082, 2 cents reduction. And we also have included the vehicles,
We need to include 26,000 for overtime.
120,000, and the new FTEs, 2 new FTEs, and we need more overtime.
Being too
I've been
lenient with you.
told.
You're getting that incentive pay, that exceptional thing.
It's still in there.
That's what I'm saying. I'm being
Yeah.
too damn lenient.
Hmm?
I'm being too lenient. I'm starting to feel bad.
You're being
now.
a good chairman
You're
for
being
once.
taking advantage of me now.
So what's
I've
that?
added $26,000 for overtime.
Okay.
Now you're gonna have to take.
So
Well,
the
how did
difference
that happen?
between the board and what we need, it's the BOS contingency.
Okay, just take it out of there. Mr. Chairman, I'm happy.
That's the problem right there.
That's what you don't like, right?
I don't like that.
And we dropped the rate.
Yeah.
Right.
Like I said, the sheriff's not asking for anything more than what he needs on all this.
No, but we can't get.
You're
there.
winning because.
I'm happy, if we can get the 2 officers, the 2 trucks for it, and the Emmys overtime.
There's one more thing.
I'm drinking poison here.
Okay, what else?
So the one more thing is the additional 8 vehicles. If we don't get slammed on all techs, we'll be able to do that.
Yeah, but that again is
Okay.
something that we.
So I think that we can agree to that in principle today.
Yeah.
And then that way the budget team has its.
Well, it actually
then
would be
come
only
January,
4 vehicles.
the
because
monies-
or 6 vehicles. We approved 2 out of the 16.
But we have 2 more personnel. Yes, for
No, that's
16
it.
plus 2 new people, that's 18. He would need 8 more vehicles. 2 reaches.
Shut up. You work. Forget about it. Let's go. Let's just commit to buying the additional vehicles that we can if Altec works out that way. Okay. All right.
I'm good with that.
All right. So what are we? Are we at a balanced budget now?
Mr. Chairman, we're at the balanced budget with 20.30% in contingencies. And we have accounted, like I said, for the reduction in fleet management, $500,000, significant. We also have one time for vehicles for the sheriff, $120,000. The exceptional policy, $77,000. This is something that we're going to have to consider for the other districts as well. And $26,000 more in
I need that, Bob.
overtime and 2 new deputies.
Yeah.
190,900
Okay,
And a 2-cent drop in tax rate.
and a 2-cent drop. in-
with a 2 cent drop in taxes.
Well, this is like being in a candy store right now.
I can
more
go
than
with
that.
that.
The hit was fleet management, correct? And the BOS.
2.06.
Fleet management and the BOS contingency are the only 2 things that took a hit.
That is correct, Supervisor Francasi.
That is
$500,000
$700,000 to
in fleet
spend.
management.
Now, are
and
we
reduction
going,
revenues.
and we'll hold back the anniversary pay until December?
31st, yes.
Just the anniversary.
Just the anniversary pay. The other one starts. The half
That it-
step begins on July the 1st, and then the other half step is on.
July 1st and the anniversary, no matter when your anniversary is, won't start
Well, then,
I asked this question and I was specifically given the answer that the money was in the budget already.
it is.
So it's just a matter of whether we delayed it or not. And I was under the agreement, I was very lenient about everything else because I thought that, that was clear, that we begin with the 1%, with the half a step in July and the other half step in December if the conditions are there to do that. Okay?
Yeah, I'm okay.
I'm okay.
That's in there, right?
Yes, it's in there.
Yeah.
Fully
Okay.
budgeted.
That's good.
So if we don't have the revenues, then are we going to then, we would
If we don't have the
recommend,
revenues,
we
we'll,
would recommend not doing the anniversary increase.
Right.
if we don't have the revenues, many things are going to happen.
Yeah, yeah.
And the same with the vehicles, et cetera, et cetera.
Right.
All right. That's it. Well, I think you quit when you're ahead.
Yeah.
Martine's been awful quiet down here.
He was quiet all day.
Well, I think the U of A got their money.
Didn't sneeze on him.
I think, we probably, for the all-text money would be to also wait until December and verify revenues,
The Altec thing?
right, before we buy 8 more vehicles.
Yeah.
It would be prudent, I think.
Say that again?
To wait until December.
If we don't get hit with all tax, we'll wait until December to get the additional vehicle.
I would be very surprised if we don't get hit.
Well, if the
The
legislature
legislature, well.
doesn't go back to session, we're okay.
Yeah, hopefully. The Senate said they were gonna sign you down regardless of the House.
All right, so do we have a budget that we can work with and you can present to us on, what is it, June the 1st?
For the general fund, Mr. Chairman, yes, I believe we do.
Okay, well then, gather your information, make sure that we get it before then, so we have a chance to review it and see if there's anything that we, like to discuss. If we like to discuss something, then I'll put it in the agenda for discussion, okay? So far, you have enough direction, I think, to come up with a balanced budget that reduces the property tax rate and increases the sheriff's department by 2 people and 2 vehicles, so far, and the medical examiners.
How much does the 8 vehicles cost us?
387,200.
Okay, then I think what we could do then would be anything remaining.
Put it back
with
into
the all taxes, throw that back into the vehicle replacement fund.
No. Throw it back into the board contingency.
I thought that the Altex, if we had savings, was gonna go to these 8 vehicles.
Right.
Right.
But it's
You said it was
$500,000.
387.
Oh, and then,
Look, what
That's
do we-
on the line, so whatever's left
You
over.
guys are now starting to get into the weeds of something that may or may not happen. No, meaning the discussion. Quit while you're ahead, Supervisor McLeod. You're ahead.
I'll
So,
go to the podium now, sir.
all right, so
Mr. Chairman, yes,
I've got a suggestion about the way to get there. Go through the outside, lock it up.
from a financial point of view, Mr. Chairman, members of the board, everything, the priority is going to be monitoring the revenues.
Yeah, that's gonna be key.
As soon as
We
we
need
have
to-
a good hold on the revenues, see how they're gonna come, then everything else is gonna materialize. If the revenues
Well, let
don't
me-
materialize, I guess it doesn't matter whether
Whether we put it there or
whether
not.
Altics come higher or low
Right.
amount.
And I'll tell you
Revenue,
what.
I just want to emphasize, revenues will be the first.
And I'll tell you what, I do want, not only did the budget review team did a good job of putting it together, but you also did a very good job of making the latest calculations and giving us a better sense of what to expect. And I think that had a bearing on how we handle the majority of these things. We did stand a little bit in my opinion, but at the end of the day, we base a lot of these numbers on your calculations, and your calculations, you back them up. So at this particular point, I think it's the best we can do, considering what's happening right now. Okay?
Thank you.
Now we just have to wait for tax.
Thank you, everybody, for coming, and hopefully, no, Supervisor Purchase is not gonna use the time.
He's been saving up.
He's been eating chocolates, getting ready.
I just want to say, and I think that in some of the budgeting that was there in the meeting, that Mr. Chair, you mentioned every time we hire a new position, it's an annual occurring.
Recurring.
So, we need to start looking at really what positions do we really need, because what I've seen in the last 3.5 years is that some departments were moved certain positions to another place, another department, and now they want them back or they want to hire. When at the first time, why were they moved? That's my question. So we got to start looking at that, and because retirement goes up, everything else goes up. Insurance that the county is paying with any position, and if employees still want to see that at least on my behalf, if they want to see that a raise every year, then we got to start balancing that out. Because if not, I'll start being really tight on the budget, especially with the raises, because we need to start looking at that. It'll catch up to us, especially if we have that we want to see cuts, and I don't mind seeing cuts on the property taxes, but we got to start balancing it out, because it's not gonna balance at 4, 5, 7 years down the road.
Yeah. You know, he doesn't want to be saying I told you so.
Well, I mean,
I told you so. That's a pretty early thing, you know. Yeah, no, we do. And let me remind the newer members of the board that Supervisor McLeod and I have been doing this for like 20 years. And it's been different. It's been different, 20 years, 22 years in my case, and it's been different every year. But over the last few years, things have gotten a lot simpler and a lot easier. And a lot of that credit goes to Susan and the BRT, because you make our job somewhat of a pleasure, because essentially, even though we had a little bit of, there was some maneuvering, let's put it that way, there was space to maneuver. And I think that credit goes to the former board members that made the decisions to keep high reserves and to be conservative about expenditures and so on and so forth. So I think that this is one of those times where I say, well, I don't know what 6 years down the road will bring, but I know that there's very few counties in Arizona that are as prepared as we are to deal with this kind of situations. I know that for a fact. And I know that we're one of the very few counties that went through the last recession without firing anyone or without, that's a credit to the former board members that made those decisions that are allowing us to make this kind of decisions today. So maybe we did a bunch of stuff that wasn't that good, but this wasn't one of them. The budget was always something that we paid special attention and cared to. And I know that there was a lot of leeway in the discussions in the past about taxes and about expenditures and so forth. But the fact of the matter is that what bears out those decisions is what we're dealing with today. When you have to cut your budget by $5 million and you can do it because you have space to do it. So I want to recognize that from the other board members that left to make sure that they get the credit they deserve. And I tell you right now, it's been incredibly enough, it's been a pleasure to do this budget, even though we're in a really bad situation and bad position, because I think at the end of the day, both things were accomplished. We balance the budget and reduce property taxes for the residents of this county, and I think that eventually will be appreciated somewhere. Thank you. And that ends this. Thank you. We'll see.